out there listening, a very warm White Cat welcome, because you're tuned in to the White Cat Outdoors podcast. What's going on, everybody? Episode 10. Here we sit. Pretty good bullshit session planned for today. You got White here, sitting across from me. What's going on, Tommy?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
You quit playing with your cords there? We're trying to do a podcast. Thank you. Sitting over to my right, Nick Soboleski.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And straight across from me, we have a real special guest today. She's a friend of ours, hardest hunter I know, hands down, Rachael Zelina.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're pretty excited today because we're going to do a season recap, deer season, PA, New York, Ohio, and hopefully you guys get to hear this because we have now tried, this is our third try at recording this episode. Nick can't seem to keep this episode and get it released, so our fingers are crossed, third time's a charm, getting this done. So we appreciate you, Nick.
I'd like to blame technology. That has nothing to do with me.
I think you don't know how to work the technology.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
See if they ever hear this one.
Yeah. Well, if you are hearing it, you're probably going to hear it on Spotify, YouTube, Spreaker, Podbean, one of those, maybe iHeartRadio. Wherever you're finding us, make sure you're following us on those platforms. Tell your friends where to find us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, which, pretty exciting stuff. We just released our first video. It's a fishing video that Luke did. And we're going to have periodic videos like that with fishing, and turkey season's coming up, so we're going to try to get some turkey hunting videos up there for you guys. So keep an eye out for that and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, and also, as always, follow us on Instagram, check us out on Facebook, and check out the website at whitecatoutdoors.com. So we say we just get right into it.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan to me. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody for those that don't know who you are?
Sure. So I grew up here in northwestern Pennsylvania. Got into hunting, fishing, as a kid. And it's kind of funny because work took me elsewhere for a long time. I lived in Connecticut. I lived in Richmond, Virginia. And, I always came home to hunt. I got the job I'm working at now. It's great. It lets me work from home. So I was able to move back here where I grew up. And I spend more time now than ever in the outdoors. So my passion's bow hunting, but I do a little bit of everything, keep myself busy and outside year round.
You gotta hook me up with one of those jobs where I can just go hunting whenever I want.
It's funny because it's like a really white collar job, right? So a lot of times, don't know if I should talk to people at work
you don't
about
really
hunting.
Fit in.
Yeah, well, it's like they ask you, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna react to this, But I always try to present it in the right light so that people really understand what I do, why I do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of us, Frank is as well. We'll try and find a job that's allows us to do what we want to do. Frank gets plenty of time off at his work, and my work's pretty flexible to take off. And Tom's a student, and he can take
Tom
when he
doesn't
wants.
work. He's a bum.
I work 15 hard hours a week. I don't want to hear it.
No, but so obviously, like you said, your passion is bow hunting, and you actually got the biggest buck this year sitting at the table, and actually better than anybody else has got here.
Yeah, all time.
And actually won our buck pull with it, and pretty much just cleaned house. A couple buck pulls, didn't you?
Yeah, I won a few.
Technically, I won our buck pull.
I was going to say, I did kind of give the money back in a couple of them because the antlers fell off on the drag out, so kind of disqualified me from getting a spread meatrement.
I tried to give you the money.
I know. I wanted the good juju.
Yeah, we try and set it up, points plus spread, so it's best buck wins, and clearly it was the best buck, but we also understand and respect your opinion on it. But do you want to go through maybe your hunt? And I know you had a little bit of history with that buck as well. If you want to maybe just go from the top with that buck.
Yeah, actually, I really didn't have history with that buck. I had him on camera once that I didn't even know about. We bought a farm in July, very unexpectedly at auction. And
Oops, we bought a farm.
I know. And so Andy and I have been together a few years, but we each had our own houses and property before we were dating. So we each had our own, and then we bought a new one. We're like, oh, what are we going to do? We got 3 houses now, but this property was just too good to be true. We went and walked the property, and it's 50-ish acres, but it hunts really big. It's got like some hidden fields and fingers and creek bottom with some apple trees, and it just has pretty much everything you could ask for.
Like, to hold them.
Yeah. We hunted Pike County, Illinois a couple of years ago, which was everything they say it is. And when we walked this property, I felt like I was in Pike County, and I'm like, I have to have this piece of property.
we are buying this today.
Yeah, we did.
Got $500,000, because that's what I'm prepared to pay.
Yeah, we did pay a little more than we wanted to for it, but one night we were in the summer, we shoot bows, we drive around and look for deer. And we're driving around one night, and we drove the tractor path back into the one field in the back, and in the middle of the field there's just this giant buck, and I was like, that was worth every penny we paid for this place. So no, I actually didn't really have much history with him. I hunted, actually, believe it or not, I was after a bigger buck. Which
you say,
the one you shot was pretty small.
I know. No, I was after one that I'm pretty positive was a booner, and I'm actually, based on recent pictures, pretty positive he survived, which is really exciting. I had a really long, or good season, but a really long season. I saw a ton of good bucks, ton of shooters, passed the biggest bucks I've ever passed, and ended up taking my tag into rifle season. It's kind of disappointment I didn't get one with my bow, but I really knew what I was after, So I encountered him the second Thursday of rifle season, and I was working that day. I work, should be like 8 to 5, but I snuck out at 4.
You have to.
So we won't tell anybody.
I just wanted to hunt the last hour, and I snuck out to this hidden field in the back where we had standing beans. And, you'd think, especially in Pennsylvania, where it's really heavily pressured, second week of gun season, you wouldn't see a buck like that in daylight, unpressured. But I'm sitting in the stand, and I'm counting turkey, because there's like a flock of turkey in the field, and I'm like, 34, 35, oh, a deer. And and I pick up my binoculars, like, oh, that's a really good buck. There were a couple other, and I originally thought it was just going to be the first doe out of the night, because that's how the doe always filter out first, and right at dark come out, the smaller bucks. And I saw it was a good buck, but I saw there was a couple deer with it. So believe it or not, I take my binos off of him and check out the other bucks to make sure the other ones weren't bigger.
That's quite the problem to have out there.
I know.
Like, yeah, I got a really good buck. We'll just see if maybe another big buck's coming.
Got to pick which booner you want.
I know. So I decide I want to shoot him, obviously, and he was about 120 yards quartering to me a little bit. Pretty much held right on the front shoulder, took my time, thought I made a perfect shot. He kind of went out of sight, but I thought he disappeared behind some red brush, and I thought he was down right there, because the other bucks he was with were kind of standing, what I thought were standing over him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I waited for those bucks to leave the field. I call Andy, my fiance, and I'm like, hey, I think I just shot a good buck. And I think he's probably 130, 140. And he's
Close.
like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, yeah, I think I made a good shot. I feel good about it. And so I go to look for him, and he's not there. There's no blood, there's no hair, there's nothing. And I start freaking out. I'm replaying everything in my head. I'm like, what happened? I'm really good at watching after the shot,
Mm-hmm.
So we eventually did find some hair, no blood, and followed his tracks. There was a little bit of snow, so followed his tracks, and he went onto the neighbor's property. So we backed down, got permission. We actually decided to wait overnight, since we really weren't sure what happened. And it ended up being a pretty long track job in the morning, just little spots of blood. And we eventually found him in the creek bottom. It was really special because my dad was there, Andy, and then Andy's dad was there. So, and my dad was the one that ended up finding him.
That's
and he was
awesome.
just hooting and hollering, and I will never forget that moment. And he was a lot bigger than I thought. So we originally scored him at 160 and 7/8, but when we were dragging him out, I said the antlers fell off. And then, so once we got him reattached and everything, we we ended up scoring him at 159 and 7/8. So not quite 160, but still my new best
Still a
buck.
heck of a
Yeah.
buck. That's your second one in the 150s, isn't it?
Yeah, I also have 155 and 2/8. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for Northwest PA.
Yeah.
So your 155 was also killed in Northwest PA.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. So
Yeah.
we don't need longs and lats on it, but just to know that, like,
Both in Erie and Crawford counties. Yep.
Yep.
And then, so my kind of standard for archery this year was I haven't got my Pope and Young yet, and I really want a Pope and Young. I've only been archery hunting a few years since I moved back to the area, because I just didn't have the time before. So my biggest with a bow is 118, I think. Like a 21-inch 8-point. Like not a lot of mass, not a lot of tines, but
Nice buck,
so
though.
this year I'm like I'm not going to shoot anything with my bow unless it's a Pope and Young, and
Nice.
yeah.
no, I mean, that's a tough feat for Pennsylvania. I mean, they're definitely out there, clearly. I mean, you've got a few of them on your wall, but, when people think of, 150s, they're thinking, Midwest whitetails, but more and more often there's bucks like that being killed in Pennsylvania. It's pretty remarkable, and I'm, getting excited myself because I know that they're around there. And
Yeah, definitely. I saw, I think, 4 people that I know shot deer in the 150s this year, and, it wasn't that long ago that, if you shot something in the 120s, it was insane. And now, you've got a couple in the 150s, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, so I've been hunting over 20 years. I'm 33 now. It's sad. And I think the antler restrictions just done wonders for Pennsylvania.
definitely.
Every year I continue to see more and more high quality bucks. I never saw anything like that when I was growing up. And this year I saw 13 bucks in archery that I considered shooters, which I thought were
I saw
possibly
6.
Pope and Young.
Yeah.
And I put a lot
Mine
of,
weren't like quite Pope and Young, but
Yeah.
they were nice, 17, 18-inch 8-points that,
Yeah.
the majority of people will be really happy to shoot.
Right. Yeah. I actually 19 different encounters with 13 different bucks during archery. And it was incredible. And I actually had the last week of season, mid-November, I had a little mishap. I drew back I tried to draw back on probably a 20-inch 10-point. I mean, he wasn't real tall. He wasn't real heavy. But I really wanted to kill him. And I went in after him. He wasn't like my number one target buck, but I knew I had really slim chances of getting that number one
Your booner.
That one that I think's a booner, I've had 3 years of history with him. I've seen him from the stand once, and I've only seen him on the hoof 3 times, which most of them were out of season. But this one, I knew he was a really good buck. I went in after him. I saw him, but I had been in the stand like 3 hours, and it was freezing rain. But I normally don't hunt the rain, just because I'm worried about a blood trail and everything.
I'm the same way.
But it was supposed to turn to snow. It was mid-November. Like I took the week off. I had to be out there, so I was in the stand a few hours, and I see him come out late morning, and I called him in actually, and he came in on a string right down this path I wanted him to, 21 yards, and I go to draw back, and I was so cold and stiff, and I couldn't pull my bow back. And I had really increased my poundage this year for elk hunting, and that's my fault. Is like I should have lowered it for but I'm stubborn, and I'm like I want to shoot as much poundage as I can because I'm a very small female. And
I'm sure you and Andy argued back and forth a little bit. I can do it.
And it was more a matter, okay, then I gotta redo my sight because I use a single pin. And I'm stubborn. And so that was heartbreaking because I put in well over 100 hours this year, and that was my one opportunity, and I blew it. And so I went in and I got warmed up, and then I went back out because I didn't think I spooked him too bad. I don't think he knew what happened. And so I went back out, but I went to a different stand and saw him again.
Perfect.
And he comes in this time even closer, walking broadside. I just needed to stop him, and I wasn't thinking that he probably is already on edge from the earlier encounter. So I give him the meh to stop him, and he took off running.
Gone.
So that was really heartbreaking. Bad way to end bow season, but I mean, it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it all panned out for you in the end.
Yeah, that's it.
So you were saying how you like went after that specific buck. So when it comes to like hunting, do you only hunt like permanent stands, or do you get mobile at all, or how exactly would you say, like when you get into bow season, how do you attack your season with like stand preparation or whatever?
Yeah, I try to have all my stands hung like a month before season. I'm not super mobile at this point, but I'd like to be. I'm like safety is first for me, so like I'm not really comfortable in a climber. I'd like to try out like the saddle hunting and see if I can get a little bit more mobile that way. It's hard for me to like wrap my arm. I'm 5 feet nothing, so it's hard for me to like wrap my arms around a tree and hang a stand. Like everything else, I'm like pretty good about doing myself. I like being very independent, but there's only so much I can do at my size. So I'm not super mobile, but and I'm always like safety first. So most of my stands are climbing sticks, hang on, and a lifeline. So I like connecting before I even climb in and feeling really safe that way. So I like to set up all my stands at least a month before season and then stay out of there. I've got a ton of different stand locations. I do share most of them like with either Andy or with my dad. So
I was gonna ask if that's kind of like, yeah, those are my stands, stay out of them, or if you guys kind of
Andy's not
share.
allowed in them.
Yeah, certain ones, like if there's a particular buck Andy really wants or I really want, we kind of avoid each other. Like I did hunt one of Andy's stands and see one of his target bucks, and I ended up passing him. And Andy got so mad at me because he's pretty sure he's a 4-year-old, but he was busted. And we didn't know he was busted until that moment. And I just, in the moment, decided I didn't want to shoot him. And so he got pretty mad at me. But no, we share stands a lot. But most of the properties I hunt are pretty small, like 50 acres or less. So I hunt most days because I work from home and I can. So, I try to move around a lot and not pressure any one property too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're obviously, you're almost mobile with that many setups and everything, and you see a buck in one spot, and obviously you're pretty well educated with when it comes to hunting, where you jump into another stand and he comes through that crossing too. So, obviously you've done your homework. So
yeah, when you're hunting property that you know so well, and you've got 10 stands on a property, you don't really need to have that mobile setup per se, because it's really convenient to have the mobile setup. When me and Nick went to Ohio this year, didn't know the property, we were hunting public, and it's nice to just be able to walk in and pick and choose what you want to do. But when you're hunting, like you said, 50-acre chunks, which is pretty much everything around in Northwest PA, you pretty much have free reign to set stands and set them, and you're good to go. You don't have to have the mobile setup in most situations.
Yeah, and so most of the properties I hunt, I'm not the only one with permission either. So, like, I try to get in there early, get my stand set up, and kind of claim my area.
Everyone back off.
And so I've gotten some comments, like, don't you have enough stands? And I'm like, listen, I hunt. I want stands for different wind directions, for morning, for evening. It's not just me that's hunting them. Sometimes it's my dad, and so like you need a lot of stands.
Yeah,
you don't want to overpressure the deer. So it's not like I'm trying to be greedy and take up all the space here.
Just trying to be prepared.
Yeah, like our property in Clymer, we've got stands where you can see other stands from them. It's just same way. It's sometimes different wind direction or morning, evening sits. You just
especially in archery, sometimes 40 yards makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
When you have a stand that's just slightly different, but you can catch totally different animals or shot opportunities 40 yards apart.
Well, and that was pretty much the story of most of my bow season, was being in the wrong stand, and I could see the stand that I should have been in, and see the deer walk by that stand. So I'd get so frustrated. It was like, how do I always pick the wrong one?
I had that, the one target buck I had this year. I was on a big bean field, and there was 3 stands on the bean field, and I'd been hunting one like a lot. I was hunting my climber, and my dad put a ladder up right near where my climber was, and I told him put it in the tree that I'd been climbing just to make it more convenient, so I didn't have to have my climber every day. And so he went in there, put this ladder up, put it in the tree I did not tell him to put it in. I guess it's my fault because I wasn't there with him to help him. I was at work.
I remember that conversation. You would text him like very specific.
Yeah,
what tree?
Face it this way. Put it in this tree.
He was like, hey, I picked a different one for you.
He's like, yeah, I didn't think that one was the one. I was like, well, you were wrong. And so I get it.
Though, I would take your dad's advice.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart dude, but I'd been hunting it every day, so I knew what I was talking about in this case. Very rarely do I, but this one I knew. And so I walk in and I see where he put the stand, and I'm standing at the base of the ladder, and I'm like, I don't like this. Like, this is not where I want to be, and I didn't bring my climber in. And there was another stand that I thought about going to. Actually, Andy's dad is the one that hung the stand, and I was like, I might go over there. And I'm standing there looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give it a try tonight. So I climb up in it, and towards the end of the evening, it was about 130-inch 8-point, walked out right underneath the one that I was like, I'm going to go over there, but I ended up not. I was like, God damn it. Like, I should have just went over there. Like, it was that close. You could see over there, and I saw him, watched him for the last half hour of the night, just wishing he would walk over, and I didn't want to start grunting and making noise because it was still pretty early in the season. I didn't want to, turn him on to anything and, spook him at all. So I just sat there quiet and kicking myself because I should have been over in the other stand.
Yeah, that's one thing I've, especially this year, started working on more was just like going with that first instinct. Like when I'm trying to decide where I want to hunt, the first place that comes to mind, that's where I want to go, because I'll second guess it the entire time if I don't. Even if it's just like I'm packing my stand in, like I've got a general location that I'm heading, and if I cross like hot sign, I'm like, okay, let's just hunt it and we'll forget about that. Like just whatever feels right. Just so I don't want to question it, because then I don't want to doubt myself when I'm in the tree. Like, oh, I wonder if I should be over there. Like, I want to be focused on what I'm doing there. But
yeah, the best night I had in the stand this year was one of the first snows we got in bow season, and I went out at like 2:00, and I'm walking to the stand that I wanted to get to, but on my way to that stand, I ran into a deer, and I'm like, oh, they're already moving. I don't want to push in even further to the timber and risk kicking up other deer. And this is on a 40-acre piece where it was my number one hit lister. So I'm like, I don't want to take any chances there. Yeah. So I climbed into the first stand that I came to rather than going in any further, and I saw 16 deer that night, 9 buck. I passed the biggest buck I've ever passed at 10 yards broadside, and he stood there for a while, and I'm like, God, it's so tempting.
He was just asking for it.
Isn't it funny how, though, like, always the bucks that you're not interested in killing will give you every opportunity to kill them, even especially like a buck that you probably wouldn't have passed knowing what your hit list buck was. And because you had no interest in killing him, he was going to make sure you had every opportunity to think about it.
Well, it was crazy, too, because the stand I climbed into, the wind was wrong for it. So what I did was, on my downwind side, I hung a little scent wick off a branch. And that way, because I knew they were going to cross my downwind side. And it was funny because every buck that came through, actually, when they hit my downwind side, they turned and came straight towards my tree to check out that scent. And so every buck, this was probably a half hour before dark, the one that I passed. And then every other buck did the same thing. And then right at dark, I see what I believe to be my target buck. Now, I mean, it was right at dark. And I saw him come into about 45 yards in the timber, so it was even darker. And I was actually in a hemlock, so it was
really dark.
Really dark.
Yeah.
I mean, still like the last
half hour early in a hemlock.
Yeah, so it's like still the last few minutes of shooting light, but he came in, and instead of doing what every other buck did and come right towards me, he turned and followed the doe a different direction.
He played that game before.
But where he came from, he would have walked by my other stand, the stand I wanted to go to, that I just couldn't get to. And so that was frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably why he got to that size, though. Yeah. He knows that game.
Yeah, he's not falling for stupid tricks and stuff. They get that big for a reason.
I've been even looking for his sheds I can't even find his sheds. Like, I'm trying to I can't figure this deer out. It's just killing me.
Remember, this was actually like back in November. I took a week off, and my granddad and his buddy have a farm up in like the Finger Lakes. I took a week during it was like the second week of November. I was like up there for like 9 days. I was hunting with my buddy Keith, and he had crossed over the ravine, and we were both what we call Westwoods. It's probably, I don't know what, like a 40-acre piece of just all hardwoods, like big white oaks everywhere. And he had went one way and I went the other, and we were both just hanging our stands as we went. And I get a text like 20 minutes later that while he was climbing his stand, he had what he said was about 140-inch 10. that was like at 15 yards. He's just hanging from his tree, trying to like get up, and and then I don't know where I was going with this story now. Like where like I know how it ends.
Do you expect me to know?
No, like I know how the story ends. Just I don't know exactly.
Why don't you just finish the story?
All right, we'll finish the story.
We'll talk about the moral later.
Yeah, we'll get circle back. So anyway, a couple days later, a couple other guys showed up at the camp, and they were all hunting towards that area, but nobody really hunts Westwoods because there's no stands over there, so you have to bring
That's
your
what we were
stand
talking
in.
about, pressuring deer. She was talking about how she didn't want to go too far into the property and stuff. So we come back around.
Full circle, no corners. So a couple days later, John goes and sits close to Westwoods, but doesn't get all the way over there because he's got to be in his mid-50s, but he's like 6'5" and almost 300 pounds. He's just a huge dude. He doesn't do much mobile climbing, so he's strictly ladders. So
there's a huge gully in between where John was in Westwood, so I can kind of see why he didn't want to cross that ravine.
Yeah, it's a bastard.
Westwoods.
It's bad. But anyway, so he sits on a ladder stand that's like probably like the way a crow flies, like only 100 yards from where Keith had seen his buck. And I don't know, like it was just right at dark pretty much. This buck crossed
the very first snow in archery season we had. I remember that night because it was actually my birthday, or the day before my birthday.
Yeah, day before.
And I was archery hunting, and it was a pretty bad snowstorm. And he had mentioned that if it wasn't for that snowstorm, he probably wouldn't have been able to shoot that buck because the snow kind of makes you be able to see for an extra 10, 15 minutes anyway.
But yeah, so he watched that buck on the other side of the gully cross right where Keith had his stand, and he grounded out like 2-3 times, and it literally turned on a dime, shot right down the bottom of the gully, came right back up, he shot, and it turned right back around and disappeared. Like it was like that last few minutes of light, and he couldn't see it. He comes back to camp saying that he had shot a really big 10, but like there's not that many big bucks running on that property, so like it has to be the same one. Anyway, so we go back that night, and there wasn't a ton of blood, and then it just like we lost it right at the top of the gully. And then Stringer, one of the other guys that was helping us track, was like shining it, and he could just see the rack down like all the way at the bottom of the gully.
This is a big gully, mind you. It's not like a
huge.
little ravine around here. It's deep.
So me and Tom go to get the four-wheeler to try and help, but it's useless because it's so deep and there's no trails to get down there. And John, instead of like trying to find a safe way down, he pretty much just sat down and slid all the way to the bottom because like this, I mean, it was huge. But he gets down to the bottom, they're hooting and hollering. Me and Tom are trying to figure out a way to get the four-wheeler down there, and there's just no way to get down there. So we finally just jump down there, and the buck's laying in about 8 inches of water, and like only half of the rack is like sticking up out of the water. It was just so deep, and we get down there, gut it, start dragging it back, and there's like 2 waterfalls that are like probably like the height of this bar, which is for people that like aren't standing right here, like 3 foot or so, 3-4
like
foot.
Bar height.
Yeah, bar. Is it standard bar height here?
Yes, it is. To
So
spec.
next time you're sitting at the bar, think that it's just flowing with water, and you got to carry a buck over 2 of them. But we get back up there, score it, and had it gross scored at 167, and it was like almost 30-inch main beams. I mean, just an absolute slob. And we've had the farm since like the early 80s, and that's by far the best buck we've ever killed up there. So it was.
The previous best one's hanging right up there in the corner.
Yeah, Frank's dad killed it. So
That's the one I got this year. I think would have scored 167. He busted off 3 points, and I didn't know that because I never actually knew I had pictures of him. But a guy like 3 or 4 miles away saw it on social media. He sent me all the pictures, and he had been hunting him. And actually, my taxidermist, Linkowski's, he had that buck on camera too. So from a couple miles away. So they sent me pictures and videos of him. The one guy actually had several years of history with him. And
Ouch.
so I know.
That's always a heartbreaker.
Then
when
some
someone
like
kills
tiny
your
little
target.
girl kills you.
yeah, at least you weren't like lucky though either. Like I mean, you put your time in.
I
so
mean,
like it's,
in that, yeah, I put my time in. In that case, it kind of was luck. Like I wasn't.
I think
hunting
a lot of hunting is luck, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
out there putting your time in. It wasn't like you went out one
Yeah.
day a year and happened to cross paths with
Well,
that deer.
actually, this buck. So he came out an hour before daylight, which is just unheard of in PA. in gun season, but he came out into the bean field just to eat an hour before daylight. Well, he walked
an hour before dark.
Or sorry, an hour before dark.
Are you breaking the law?
Yeah, rebel over
I
here.
had my spotlight.
Hour before dark, and he walked right by, like 20 yards from this one guy's archery stand. And I had seen the guy hunt it before in rifle, so had he been there, I probably wouldn't have even got a shot at that buck. But it was just like the back of our property line, the next property over. Some guy normally sits there, and he wasn't. Luckily, I was there, and he wasn't, basically. But yeah, we think this buck was like 6 years old, based on the other guys had like 4 years of history with him, which also is pretty unheard of around here.
Yeah, and especially to see him cruising, in daylight like that. Usually bucks like that, or at that age class, aren't cruising that early.
Well,
and it's home, like usually as they get young or older, their home range shrinks down, and if they got pictures 3-4 miles away, that's quite the haul for, I feel like, a mature buck.
I wonder if he just got booted out, because we do have game lands nearby.
I was just going to say, like, with all the hunting pressure we have here in Northwest PA, like, it's not inconceivable to think that he was just like, all right, the hell with this spot, I'm moving over.
Yeah, and then the property next to ours is actually 280 acres, which is really nice because it's leased out, and that guy hunts it very smartly. He doesn't pressure it a lot either. So I think by Thursday, a lot of people hunt just Saturday.
A lot of people are first day hunters or the first weekend or whatever.
So I think all week it didn't get pressured much, and he got comfortable enough to come out in daylight and come to our beans. It worked out really well. But anyway, he would have been a 13 point. He busted off an eye guard.
It was split, wasn't it?
His brow tine was split, one brow. So he busted off a brow that included a split, and then he busted off an eye guard. So 3 points that we figure if they matched the other brow and eye guard would have been like 7 inches total. So he probably would have been in the 166, 167 range, which I'm happy actually, because like had he been 170 and I didn't get the official booner because his antlers fell off, I would be heartbroken. So like I'm happy to know he wasn't 170.
So the silver lining on that one.
Yeah.
But it's funny because anytime I like get a big buck around here, which has been a few, everyone's like,
more than
that's
most.
That's the buck of a lifetime. How are you ever going to top that? And then I
give me a couple years.
Yeah, I keep doing it. So
do it again.
I'm sure my luck will run out eventually, but I also I put in a lot of time.
I was just going to say, with how hard you hunt, I'm sure you're not going to run out of luck anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you put more hours in than anybody at this table.
Yeah.
I mean, especially working from home definitely helps for that. But I mean, there's a lot of people that also work from home or that hunt that, they hunt Saturdays and they go to the same stand over and over and over again and wonder why they're not killing 150s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I try to be smart about it. I never lack the motivation. I'm never I have to go out today. There was one day actually where this was 2 years ago where I was on a business trip. I didn't get into midnight on a Thursday night. It was Friday morning. And it was snowing. It was November 9th, and I was so tired, and I just couldn't find the will to get out of bed, which is not like me, but I'm like, you know what? I have to. And I dragged my butt out there, and I went after this buck that we called the Big 8, and it was actually on Andy's property, so... And that's why he tells me, he's like, you're one of the only hunters I'm threatened by, because if you say you're going to go in to kill a buck, you're probably going to kill the buck. And so I went in there that morning.
Are you known for calling shots on bucks?
No.
Just that one.
Just that one. Really, just that one. So I went in after that buck. I climbed in the stand probably an hour later. I called Andy and I was like, hey, I killed the Big 8.
That's the last time
I'm sure he was thrilled.
Yeah, no, he was, because it wasn't like a huge buck or anything, but it was cool. It was a mature buck. We were excited about it. He was proud of me. He is jealous upon occasion, I would say, but he's also very proud of me.
Yeah, I remember we were talking last Saturday. He was a little upset that he wasn't on the podcast first. He said you just got to kill a bigger buck, I guess.
Andy.
He had to remind me, he has the bigger buck of all time.
He definitely, I helped him track that deer when he shot it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was there when he shot it, yep.
Yeah, that was 2009.
It was that long ago already.
So
wow, I didn't think it was that long.
He's due for another one.
Yeah, if you'll have us, we'd like to get him on, and then maybe bring both you guys on together and
He says no,
Duke
you
it
blew
out.
it. But
we blew it.
I would love to have like a debate episode with him to talk about, like his version of the story versus mine, because we do have some conflicting stories.
I don't doubt that at all.
Well, you push that for us, and we'll definitely set something up for
Yeah.
that. That'd be an interesting
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. This year, actually in gun season, I was working one day and I wanted to get out to the woods, but I had some work I had to get done. And he was out hunting, and he already had his buck. He got his buck in archery. And actually, not the only reason, but yeah, probably the only reason
Did he win our archery pool? Oh, no, Klobuchar won our archery
Yeah,
pool.
Klobuchar won our archery,
But
but
yeah.
it was still a nice buck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had 2 encounters with that buck before he shot it. I had it at 55 yards, and which seemed really far, but I went elk hunting this year, and I was shooting out to 100 yards to practice for that. Not that I would ever shoot that far, but
Yeah, Whitetail are a little too skittish for that.
But like shooting at 100 all summer, like 50 seems easy,
Yeah.
And I would absolutely take a 50-yard shot at an elk, but not at a whitetail, And
Yeah.
so that buck comes out, and he's got his head down, and he's feeding in the beans. He's at 55 yards. I keep ranging him, like thinking
could
about
end
it.
you right
I'm
now.
like, I could. I'm confident. I know I can make that shot. I'm like, no, Rachel, like you know your limits. Don't be tempted. So
Yeah.
I didn't, but I had a couple encounters with him, and then one night we actually drew stand locations out of a hat. Like we narrowed it down. Like these are the 3 stands based on the wind direction that we should hunt tonight. And him and I drew out of a hat who got to hunt each one. So it ended up I hunted his buck and he hunted our farm. And I saw his buck and I passed him. He got mad at me. He ended up killing that night. And so he got his in archery. And then in rifle, he's out. He's got a doe tag. Excuse me. Too much beer. So ladylike.
You need another one?
Yeah, probably. So he's in the stand, and like a big box blind rifle stand, and he texts me and he's like, you got to get out here. There's a hot doe in the field and there's bucks everywhere. And I'm like, I'm working. I can't. And he's
You work
like,
from home. You
I
always
know, but
can.
I had work.
Can
I
you
had
bring
to
the
get-
laptop to the stand with
I
you?
can, and I have, because I have a hotspot. I'm not kidding. I have a hotspot. So, get Wi-Fi, and I bring the laptop out there. So, like, it totally works. But then I only have a couple hours of battery life on the laptop, so I can't do it all day. And I can't do it if I have conference calls.
Perfect for an evening hunt.
I know. So, I get out there, and I climb in the stand, and he saw what he believed to be like a 140-inch 8-point.
That's a big 8.
And he knows, like,
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't
monster
doubt
8.
him if he
Yeah,
says
no, Andy
100
knows what he's
yeah.
looking at.
So, by the time I climb in the stand, he actually watched, this is in rifle, so it's in December, he watched the buck breed the doe in the field. By the time I got there, the buck was gone. Well, another buck came in and starts chasing, and so we see this doe cross our shooting lane, and we knew the buck was going to be next. So I get my gun up, I get ready, I see it coming, safety off, like ready to fire. Andy moves so that he can see, and he bumped me.
I think he did it on
And
purpose.
like it was the second that the buck crossed the path, and I look at him, and it's like the death glare, and I'm like,
Did you just make a decision to end your life sooner than you were expecting?
and he, like, there was so much tension. We didn't say a word, like, the rest of the night. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I just wanted to see. And I'm like, you don't need to see. I need to see.
Yeah.
So when I ended up getting my buck, he goes, you're welcome for bumping your gun the other day. I'm like, really?
Thank you to Andy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many people that get, missed opportunities at 140s and,
And end up killing one that's almost 160.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely some luck to it.
Yeah, definitely.
So you were talking earlier how you were practicing for an elk hunt. Do you want to go over a little bit about your elk hunt? I don't know. I don't even remember what state you guys were in.
We hunted Montana. Oh my God, it was amazing. So it was my first time. I was really nervous heading out there, like just being a very small female. Like I don't want to hold anyone back. Like I want to be able to keep up with the guys, and I don't want anyone to feel like they're,
they have to cater to you.
Yeah, like they're taking away from their hunt to help me or anything. So I trained so hard. I'd put my pack on and hike all the time, and I did like a half marathon leading up to it, so like I'd be in really good shape, and so we get out there, and it was so beautiful. Like everything about it, and I went in with not low expectations, but like realistic expectations. Like I know odds are really low.
Yeah, especially when you've never hunted an area before. You're going in blind. You don't know what you're walking into.
Right, like we're hunting public land, no guide. I've never hunted elk before. We're using archery equipment, like the odds are against you. So my goal was to get within bow range of an elk. I said that would be success for me. I got within bow range of 3 elks and actually 3 bulls. So it was pretty amazing.
Successful, yeah. Absolutely.
I will credit Andy for that, because he did all the calling. I tried calling, and we would practice all summer long, and my neighbor would text me, and he's like, "Sounds like there's a dying elk over there. Is everything okay?"
Could you please shut up?
So Andy got a lot better at it than me. So he did all the calling, and I was shooter, So
is that one of your tactics to make sure you put your bow in your hand while you're out there?
Yeah.
I just can't quite figure this call out.
I don't know how to make an elk call. Hey, it worked. Although he said this year we're gonna go back, and he said this year I've got to learn how to call. So
you don't have a choice this time.
I can do a good cow call. It's just my bugle sounds pretty pathetic. So, but we got out there, and so I navigated. We used Onyx, and which was so nice.
That's what everywhere we go, we always use Onyx. Like me and my dad went to Nebraska a few years ago, and me and Nick were in Ohio. He was driving, and the whole time I was on Onyx. Like, okay, here. These are the spots that look enticing. Let's start going.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I was like, I want to go to this area on this mountain. It looks good. We got up there, and like everything else we had seen was very dry and brown, and we find this area that's just so green and a lot of browse, and I'm like, if I don't know a lot about elk, but if I were an elk, this is where I'd be. So we get up there, and I all of a sudden like catch a whiff of elk, and I'm like, Andy, I smell elk. Like I've never smelled an elk before, but I know that's an elk. That's definitely an elk. So we set up, and he starts calling, and immediately this bull comes in, and 31, 32 yards broadside. It was a spike, and that's the only thing I did not have a tag for. I could have shot a cow, I could have shot a brow tine bull, but no spikes. So I put my bow down and started filming it. It was pretty cool. He eventually circled around and went downwind of me, and then took off running. Well, Andy never saw any of it because he's set up pretty far behind me calling, and he hears the elk run away. And he kind of peeks out from behind the tree to look at me, and I'm like throwing my hands in the air. I'm like, yes!
He thought you shot.
He's like, you got it? I'm like, no, but I could have. I was like, that was success for me. I was so excited. Had we gone home that day, I still would have thought it was like the best trip ever. But we had 2 more encounters, and actually the only other hunters we saw the entire trip were literally when I was drawn back on a bull. And so, because we were, Andy was calling back and forth with this bull, finally got him to come in. I had him at 45 yards. His vitals were behind a tree. I needed him to take 1 step. So I draw back, wait for that step, and all of a sudden he takes off running the other way. It was confusing because I'm like, he didn't see me. We had the wind in our favor. What happened? And then I see up over the ridge, I see 2 hunters. I'm like, are you kidding me? So later that day, we continue on, and we wanted to head back to that area where we had seen the spike the first day. And we get up there, and we're on the same game trail that we were on a couple days before, and I see this pile of what looks like digested berries, and like a very large pile. And I'm like, Andy, what's that? And he's like, I think it's...
That's nothing, dear.
Yeah, I think that might be bear poop, Rich. And I'm like, oh boy. And he's like, well, maybe it's black bear poop. I'm like, no, I know what black bear poop looks like. That is not black bear poop.
We have black bears back home.
Yeah.
That looks like grizzly shit right there.
Yep. And so it was funny because I had my phone in airplane mode the whole time, but I turned it off airplane mode just to see if I had service, and I did. And so I'm like, I Google, what does grizzly shit look like? And the first image that comes up on Google looked exactly like what I was looking
Someone
at.
took a picture of
live
this
photo.
pile.
And I kid you not, this was the only day I didn't carry my sidearm because it was like day 7 of our trip. I was exhausted and I'm like, what can I leave at home? I can't leave my water. I can't leave my food. Like, how do I lighten my pack? And Andy's dad, who the day before was like welcoming me to his family because Andy proposed out there. He's like, welcome to the family. And then he's like, don't take your gun. You don't need a gun. There's no grizzlies around here. And then
Everything's fine.
yeah, everything's fine. Yeah. And so I don't take my gun that day. And now I kicked this pile of poop and it like falls apart. Like it's not hardened. It's kind of fresh. And I knew I was on that same trail like 2 days prior. And Andy's like, that's not grizzly poop. And we weren't on this trail. It's probably old. And I'm like, I know. You're just trying to make me feel
You're
better.
not fooling me, cowboy.
Yeah. So, like, that was definitely, I mean, I'm pretty tough, but, like, that was definitely my weakest moment. I freaked out. And I'm like, because we were in an area where it was very thick, you couldn't see far. So I'm like, what do we do? Like, do I go back to camp? That's a couple hours to get my gun. And you waste your whole day. And I'm like, no, I only have 1 day left to hunt. I'm not wasting it. So I'm like, okay, if we get around to an area that's more open, I'll feel more comfortable. So we went around to the other side of the mountain where there were some meadows and everything and set up there. And actually, while we were heading over there, saw a bunch of fresh sign, again, like smelled an elk and called one in. And I like completely forgot about the grizzly. And that one, it was like a raghorn bull, but one of his main beams was busted off like halfway. And he was heading towards an opening where I would have had like a 30-yard shot. But the wind switched on us and he took off again. So those were our 3 encounters. It was so exciting. I got back to camp that night, and yell at my future father-in-law for telling me, and I'm like, well, you trying to have me killed? You just welcomed me to the family.
Yeah.
But one guy in our group did get a nice bull. We got a muley, and it's Andy's muley. I did assist on that.
Had to finish him up.
I did.
This is going to be fun when we can get them both on here together. It'll be fun.
See, I think I'm saying all these stories so that he's gonna have to come on and like redeem himself or like explain.
He's gonna have to defend himself.
He will have to.
Yeah, the rebuttal.
He said he doesn't want to be on it, but he's gonna hear this and be like, "God damn it! Now I gotta go on."
Or he's just not gonna marry me anymore. Actually,
I hope we're not the reason for that.
He made a joke like, I don't know, it's been like 3 years in a row where you got bigger bucks than me. If you do it again, I just don't know if I can marry someone.
This.
Yes, I know. So
that's funny. Well, you definitely had a very exciting season. You killed the biggest buck of your life. You were elk hunting. You got engaged on a hunt. So you're just killing it this year.
Yeah. So far, I'm hoping next season's better. I mean, it'll be hard to top, but I learned so much on the elk hunt and I had so much fun. I love the physical aspect of it. Like, so coming back and sitting in a stand felt a little boring for a while. But we're definitely going back this year. And my goal this year is to kill an elk. Whether it's me or Andy, like, it's definitely a team sport. You know what I mean? Like, elk hunting is definitely a team sport. So whether it's him or me, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But that's our goal for this year. And that would be...
Yeah, you saying elk hunting is a team sport. We had a guy up in Alaska this year that's from Colorado, and he said every time he goes elk hunting, and he's killed some nice bulls over the years, he's always with someone else. And the way how you said you and Andy set up with him back behind you a ways, he said that's literally every time he's in the woods, that's how him and his buddies set up. Either he's the shooter, his buddy's the shooter, so whoever else is calling, and that's how they always do it.
Yeah. Well, we watched a bunch of YouTube videos. We watch elk hunting on TV. I mean, that's all we watch. We actually don't have internet where we live now, so we don't have any like streaming services. So we just constantly are watching, hunting DVD. We got old school like Drury DVDs and stuff, but we're whatever's on TV, we're watching hunting shows or I'm listening to podcasts about hunting, like trying to just take in all the knowledge I can so like I could be prepared for it. So, we went in like, I wouldn't say it's like we didn't know anything about elk hunting. Like we did our preparation.
You were as prepared as you could possibly be.
For not having done it before. Yep. Yeah.
So is Montana, you're in Montana, so is that like an over-the-counter state or how does that work for tags? Like, 'cause I know you said you're going back next year.
Well, we're hoping to go back next year. It's a draw. The draw odds are pretty good if you buy a preference point. So I think it's like 70% or 80% draw if you buy a preference point. We apply as a group, so either like
one goes, all go. Okay.
Our fallback option's Colorado because that's still over the counter.
So you're going on an elk hunt again.
Yeah.
It's whether it's Montana or a fallback into
Yeah,
Colorado.
that's like our honeymoon plan. So romantic. We're going to sleep in separate sleeping bags and not take showers all week.
Sounds sexy.
Yeah, so great. I don't think grandbabies will be made. My mom's bugging me for grandbabies, and I hate to tell you, Mom, but I don't think we're going to get any on that honeymoon.
Well, hopefully you can get some elk. That might be a better story anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So have you guys done any research for Colorado or
We
for
have.
Montana again? Like, are you planning to go to the same area or a new location?
So I signed up for the Go Hunt Insider, which like gives you a lot of information about all the different units in various states, and so I found a couple other good units in Montana, but we really did like where we were at. There wasn't a ton of pressure. Had we gotten there a day earlier, I think we would have got a better spot. We were in a pretty tough spot where we camped. We had to hike a long ways to even just get started every morning. This year we do kind of want to backpack in. Like, we had a base camp we went back to every night, but this time we do want to take our backpacking tent and stay in.
Kind of have like a spike camp kind of thing.
We didn't do that at
I
all
would
last
love
year.
to do a hunt like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I mean, it was really cool. Like, it just gave me a lot of confidence, you know, because I like not sure that I could do it, you know. Like, I talked to Andy. I was like, "Are you like, I know I'm tough, but I'm also very small, and like, do you think I'll be okay?" And like, just going through all of it, I'm like, I honestly think I could do that on my own if I weren't worried about getting hurt, because I do have like some back issues and knee issues on occasion, and like, if I weren't worried about getting hurt, also I'm like very allergic to bees, and I almost got stung out there, which is like terrifying to be hours from anything and have.
Tom knows all about that.
Yeah, it's not a good time.
So like, if I weren't worried about all that, I think I could do it on my own, because that was part of it. Like, I kind of want to just do a day by myself out here, like just to say that I you know. But it was nice. Andy and I hunted together every day, and just the two of us, and it was great. So I think we'll probably go back to the same area, but I have been scouting out different areas and in Colorado just in case.
Yeah, I think what you were talking about, like, wondering if you're going to be prepared for it. I think a determination is has a lot to do with it. More like, obviously, like, physical wellness is obviously a huge factor, but I think just being determined to succeed out there, it probably drives it so much as well. Like, you know, like, yeah, this sucks, but like, I'm elk hunting, so like, how could it be any better?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. And that's exactly what Andy said to me too, like a couple of times during the week. He's like, I'm so impressed by you. Like, he's like, I don't think any of my friends could even do this. And he's like, physically, yes, they're strong enough, but like, it's the mental aspect to keep.
The mentally is what gets most people.
I just wanted to keep going, and I was the first one up in the morning, like making coffee, like, and everything about being out in the mountain like that. Just the coffee tasted better, like the beer tasted better, dinners were so great. Like, I slept better than I sleep in my own bed.
Oh, you sleep so good after a long day of hunting. Like, up in Alaska, you're in a shitty tent, it's freezing cold, but you're laying there after a long day of walking around moose hunting. It's like, all right, it's bedtime, I'm good to go.
Yeah, it was just, everything about it was incredible.
I've never been to Alaska or Montana, but I remember Tom and Frank both said when they were in Alaska how quiet it was. Is Montana the same way? Because I know you're you're way out there in Montana. So like, was it like almost like an eerie feeling? Like, because like, even when it's quiet in Edinburgh and Erie where we're at, it's not really quiet.
Yeah, it was very quiet. There was nothing, and even we didn't realize we were kind of close to a road at one point, and we didn't realize it. And that's the day that we saw those other hunters. They came in from a nearby road, heard us calling, came up. But other than that one access road, there was no traffic, nothing. You couldn't hear. Although there was like some cattle nearby. And so in the middle of the night, one night, they happened to be in our area, and it was just mooing all night long. I was like, do I need to come home with elk meat, or do I need to come home with some beef?
There's some free black Angus out there in that field.
It's so irritated.
Yeah. So are they just like out free ranging in that area? Because I remember we were in Kansas, was it? Yeah, I was turkey hunting in Kansas, and we were like hunting in some public land and all. Like you just come across like tons of cow manure like out in the wild, and it was just kind of
That's how it was
unexpected.
in Nebraska. Like a lot of the farmers are allowed to let their cattle out on public ground when it's not hunting season. Obviously, they don't want their cows running around when people with guns are running around out there. But yeah, I don't know how most states are out there, but in Nebraska, and I'm guessing it was the same in Kansas, they can just and they have to pay for it, obviously, but they can let their cattle out onto public land to graze and stuff, but they have to get them wrangled up and back on their property before
that
the
seems like
season.
insane. Like how, I mean, obviously cows are herd animals, so they stay together, but that just seems crazy to be like, all right, we're just going to open the fence. We'll come
Just let
back.
'em
in a
go.
little-
Yeah.
We'll come back for you guys in a little while.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but there were cow everywhere. And one day there was one that really was angry at me and just wanted to like follow me and charge me. And Andy actually had to get in the middle because like I thought I was gonna have to shoot this cow.
How close did it get?
Oh, pretty close. Like,
Good thing you had your sidearm.
Yeah.
Don't need the sidearm for
was that the day
grizzlies.
that
You need
had
it
your
for
sidearm
cows.
with you?
yeah, I wouldn't have shot the cow though, but yeah, I mean, probably 10 yards or so. You know,
Wow.
it kept following me, coming at me. This cow did not like me for whatever reason. But they say like if the cows are there, you probably should leave because the elk won't be there. And we definitely noticed the one day that the cows like were really passing through our specific area. We didn't see anything, but there was still fresh elk sign everywhere, so I think they get used to them. But
Yeah, I was gonna say they probably get used to that happening every
Yeah.
year if that's the case. You know, it's
Yeah.
just another animal that they deal with throughout the year.
Yeah. I will say there were some brown cows that, like, when we were glassing, I'm like, "Ooh, elk!" And no,
Hold the
brown
gun up.
cows. Like,
Well, they were bows, but yeah. That'd get you excited for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, because, I mean, there's not too many animals that size out there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Any brown spot way out there.
mm-hmm.
Now, how far could you guys see while you're in Montana? Like, did you guys have, like, spotting scopes, or were you, like, with binoculars?
We did have spotting scopes. We didn't take. There wasn't a ton of opportunity for glassing. Like right where our base camp was, we would kind of glass at first light. And actually, one morning we saw a herd of elk. They were at least 3 miles from our base camp because we saw them. We decided there was a really good bull in the herd, and we'd go after them. We just busted our butts to get there in time. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. 3 miles and like as fast as I possibly could with a ton of weight on my back. By the time we got there, they were gone. I think most people would have seen them and be like, screw that. But I wanted that bull, you
So
know.
it's back to your determination when
Yeah.
you see something like that.
But then there was another day where I saw, like, we were kind of glassing, and I'm like, this one mountain, it looked interesting to me. It looked very green. It was very thick and dense, and I'm like, let's try that tomorrow, you know? And it looked like a good idea, but 5 miles later, we got over there, and we see a snowstorm rolling in, and we were not prepared for a snowstorm. Like, when we packed, the forecast said it was going to be 65, 70 during the day and like 40 at night. So we did not pack for a snowstorm, and we get 5 miles from our base camp, and the snowstorm just comes out of nowhere, and we're like, we might want to go back to camp. And so by the time we got all the way over there, we had to turn around and go back.
Just a quick 5 miles back to camp.
Yeah. Yeah. Not my best idea. Actually, so I navigated the whole time, and I led us into some questionable situations where we were like scaling the side of a rock face that I thought on the map looked like a meadow, and I'm like, let's go check out this meadow, and it was not a meadow.
We had that happen rattlesnake hunting last year. Like, I was almost always the one navigating, saying, okay, this is our next spot. And my dad chimed in like 2 times. And every time he said something, it was like, this sucked. Like, it was just straight up like hills like crazy. Like, we weren't finding any snakes. It was just nasty shit. And it's like, who put you in charge?
Yeah.
I just remember when we were that was that trip we had Jared with us, and we had hiked. We probably did like 4 to 5 miles, and we had hiked that area before, and my Uncle Frank was like, well, you know, we've walked like kind of like this big L shape, and he's like, it should be like straight through the woods there. We can get back to the truck in half the time. We could snake hunt the whole way. And we'd had Jared with us, and I was in charge of water. Well, I'm kind of a camel. I can drink a bunch of water, and then I don't need it for the rest of the day. So I had brought like, I don't know, like
one bottle.
There was like
of
two.
water
I had like 2 bottles of water for like 5 guys in my backpack. And by the point where we were just getting ready to like trek like that straight line through, Jared asked for a bottle of water, and I'm like, yeah, we're long gone, buddy. Like, we're out of water. And so he was all upset about that. And this straight line through was just
nothing
nasty.
but mountain laurels, and it was thick, nasty crap through the hills, and it was bad.
You couldn't see more than 5 yards in front of you, and it was that way the entire way back to the truck. Jared was less than happy, to say the least. And there was no snakes, believe it or not. We didn't find a single snake in there.
All right, well, what about everyone else this season? I've talked a lot about mine.
I think we'll start with Tom, because me and Tom kind of went back and forth this year killing deer, so...
We'll just go clockwise around the table. We started with Rachel. She gave us, how she kills big bucks, left and right. We'll just go right around the table.
We should have started with the smaller bucks with you, Tom, upgraded to me, and then finished with the biggest one. But
people are going to start tuning out. They're like, oh, there's no more 150s?
Done. Anyway, Tom.
So my archery season was, I wouldn't call it unsuccessful. I didn't harvest anything in archery season, but I had some good encounters. I saw one really nice buck. It was a 10-point, probably 18 inches wide. And this was early. This was what I would have thought was pre-rut. This was, I believe it was before Halloween. And I was hunting the edge of this big goldenrod field. I was in the hardwoods, and I watched this really big buck come out of the goldenrods and into the hardwoods. And he put his head down and started thrashing through these shrubs and everything, making a huge scrape, grunting and everything. And I thought, oh man, he's all fired up. I'm gonna give him a little grunt action, see what happens. And I grunted at him, and out came another little buck. And the big buck that I was after chased this little buck right out, and he came back, and I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna get another shot.
He was hot to trot. He was ready to go.
Yeah, he wasn't messing around that night. And as it would, you would expect, a doe comes out and he chases that doe.
It's like getting intercepted by a hen in turkey season. They always just
never
ruin
fails.
your day.
Yeah, it's great. But that was my big archery hunt. That was, the biggest, I think, probably the biggest buck I've ever seen in PA archery hunting. So I would call that a successful hunt. But I never put anything on the ground until New York rifle season. I was up at the farm up in Clymer. And I don't even know why I decided to hunt that night. It was probably 20 miles an hour wind, snowing, raining, just not a good time. And I'm sitting in my tree stand. I'm soaking wet. This was before I had waterproof hunting gear, so that was pretty cool. Soaking wet, freezing cold, just not seeing anything, couldn't hear anything. And it was probably about 30 minutes before dark, and I got this idea. I was like, if I was a deer and I was relying on, scent, sight, and hearing, I would be out in the field right now, because I can't smell anything, and I sure as hell can't hear anything. So I would at least want to be out in the field where I can see. So I climb out of my stand before dark, which I typically never do, and walk up to the field edge, and there was, I want to say, 8 doe out there. And I had a New York doe tag, so picked the biggest one, put the squeeze on her, and she took off running into the woods.
What kind of gun did you shoot her with? I think this will fire Rachel up.
6.5 Creedmoor. You got something to say?
No, okay, so this is my first year shooting one. Not to go back to my buck, but this is my first year shooting the 6.5. Everyone talks about it. Had to try it. Sighted it in. It was just dead accurate.
Oh, they're tack drivers.
I loved it. I was so excited. I was so excited to hunt with it, and so I shoot my buck with it. I swear I held on that shoulder and made a good shot. I knew where my shot was, right? And so we start tracking this deer. There's no blood. Literally just, if you pricked your finger and one little drop, that was it every 40 yards or something. And Andy, everyone else is like, I think it's just like a flesh wound. I don't think you hit anything vital or whatever. And I'm like, you guys, I know I hit this deer in the shoulder. And sure enough, we find the deer. I mean, and it's sad to say, but like he wasn't overly stiff. And we left him overnight, and it was like in the teens overnight. And so
he was alive for a while.
I hit him in the shoulder, quarter and two. Went
Did you
through,
get a clean pass through?
clean pass through, came out just in front of the hind quarter on the other side, all the way through his body cavity. I mean, his insides were mush. There was no blood. And I mean, I only caught one lung and guts and everything, but he went probably 3/4 of a mile and lived obviously several hours at least, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those
So
darn 6.5s.
I think, like, from people I've been talking to, I probably was just using the wrong bullet. I used 143 grain ballistic tip, which I thought was good for this gun and for deer. And actually I heard someone I know, his dad shot a bull elk at like 700 yards with the exact same bullet and double lunged it, turned the lungs just to jello, and it went nowhere. But from what I've heard, I should have used a lot lighter bullet, I guess.
I don't know much about the 6.5.
I don't know a lot about. I mean, I'm more, like I said, I'm more of a bow hunter. So, like, I don't know, and that was my first time with the 6.5, but I did not have a good experience with it.
Well, I've shot, I think, 3 deer now with the 6.5. 2 of them went down right in their tracks, and
One of them was wounded already by Nick, so that one
but-
doesn't count.
no, not that one.
That was 2
I
seasons
don't
ago.
count
We don't
that
have to
one.
talk about that one.
That one's old news.
Yeah, I don't count that one. No, we'll call that one next year, but I don't
Back
count
when you
that
had to
one.
finish off the muley, Tom had to finish a doe for me after my
Yeah.
vital hit, but it's okay.
Besides that one, I've got 3 with that gun, and 2 of them went down right there. And this doe up in New York, I shot, and she ran off into the woods, and I really felt like I made a good shot on her. She was only 80 yards away. I had a hay bale to rest on, so I was pretty confident with my shot. And I walk up there, I couldn't find blood, couldn't find hair, couldn't find anything. But there was no snow, and it was raining and whatnot. So I decided I was just going to take a walk, where I saw her run into the edge of the woods, which was 60 yards. And I get to the edge of the woods, and she didn't make it 10 yards inside the woods. She was piled up right there, double lung. So that was the first deer I got this year. And the next deer I got was actually the first day of gun season, which I haven't got a deer on the
In
first day.
PA?
Yeah, PA. And I haven't got a deer on the first day of gun in PA since I was, I think, 10 years old, mentor hunting with my dad. And
It seems like it's just like notorious. Every year for the first day, we have the absolute worst weather. Like, it's always pouring down rain.
right, this year was actually pretty nice. I broke.
Actually, I didn't even get to hunt this year. I had to work.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a lie.
Well,
you shot
the
your buck on
Saturday.
opening day.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, I forgot it was a Saturday.
That was extremely
So-
loud.
No, I did have to work because I didn't get to hunt the morning. I shot my deer in the evening.
Yeah.
I had to work in the morning. So we'll talk about my deer in a minute, Tom. Why don't you just tell your
Yeah.
damn story?
Well,
Can I
I'm working
finish
on it.
one damn story?
So I get in there. We actually had an opener on Saturday this year, which was new for me. And I went in Friday, hung my climber, thought I was in a pretty good spot, and go back in Saturday morning before light. And Nick's over there giving me a look because he thinks it's his spot that
I showed you that spot.
I've been hunting that spot for years, long before you ever showed it
Dog
to me.
years, maybe.
Yeah.
It's okay. I would have passed him. It's all right.
Yeah, I probably would have passed him too had I known. That's
Tom, why don't you
actually a
just
lie.
tell your
That's a lie. So I get in there Saturday morning. It's still dark. Forget my headlamp, and I can't find my stand. I'm walking around.
In the area that he's been hunting for years, mind you.
Story checks out here.
Yeah, well,
Credibility is not shot.
woods are a little bit different in the dark, and I'm walking around for like 30 minutes. Can't find my stand. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit down until it gets a little bit light out, and then I'll find her. So gets a little bit light out. I was like 10 yards from my stand. I don't know how I was missing it, but climb up. Everything's good. First deer I see is like 8 o'clock, and this is really nice 8-point, probably about 17, 18 inches wide, but pretty heavy. And where I was hunting, it wasn't an ideal rifle spot. I mean, your max shot was probably 50 yards, which, I mean, I've seen a lot of deer, but this buck in particular
Well,
was...
shooting a 6.5, you don't want to shoot much more than 50 yards.
See, a 6.5, that's my New York gun. And when I'm hunting PA, I use my 325 short mag.
You don't want them getting away on you.
No, I don't really like tracking that much. So this buck comes through, and he actually walked, like we were talking earlier, right past a tree that I had my climber in it the day before. You know, getting everything set up. I was up in that tree looking around. I didn't really like what I was seeing because the tree wide off like 10 feet up in the air. So I didn't like being that low to the ground. I wanted to get a little bit higher. But had I been in that tree, this buck would have been right underneath me. And
eye level with you.
Yeah, pretty much. So pass on him, and I saw some doe, and I was just getting ready to eat lunch. And I'm reaching into my bag. I pulled my sandwich out when I saw this buck coming through the thick stuff. And I was hunting like it was a transition area. There was a big goldenrod field, and there's kind of like a funnel of, briars and a little bit thin goldenrod bushes and crap before it opens up into hemlocks and hardwoods. And I figured, they'd be traveling that funnel going from bedding to food.
Checks out here.
Yeah. So just like I figured he would, buck comes through the funnel, and it's real thick. So I put my binos on him, and I see the one side has 3 up, and I decided, yep, this is the one.
Night.
We had this buck on camera that was like a 20-inch wide 8-point, and he had real short, spindly tines, and I thought it was that buck. And so I put my binos down and, got my gun in the clearing. And as soon as he stepped out into the clearing, I gave him the squeeze. And I called my grandpa. I said, hey, I just shot a buck. I think it was that wide 8-point that, real spindly. And he said, that's awesome. I'll be right over. And he said, did you see him go down? I said, no, but I heard him crash. And he said, all right, well, I'll meet you at your stand and we'll go look for him. So he actually called me on his way over to me and said, hey, I'm walking over here and I'm standing at your buck. And I'm like, sweet, is it the one I thought it was? He said, you'll see it when you get over here. So I climb down, walk over, and turns out it wasn't that buck. It was...
Are you telling me you didn't positively identify your target?
I positively identified it as a legal deer.
All right,
So,
that's fine.
yeah.
I'll allow it.
We'll give you a pass.
Yeah. So it didn't have brow tines, and the if it did have brow tines, what would have been the G2 on the one side was busted off. So it ended up being a 5-point, which I wasn't like thrilled with, but these things happen. I get really excited.
For a 5, I will say it was the nicest 5-point I have ever seen.
Yeah. But I get really excited when I'm in the woods. Like Nick will testify. Like he's been sitting with me, and we'll have a spike come out or a 4-point, and like I won't even grab my gun or anything, and I'm just sitting there. Like,
yeah, it's not a legal deer. You
shaking
can't shoot
like crazy. I can't help myself. It's bad. But yeah, I get really excited, and I've shot a couple deer that had some ground shrinkage. This one probably had the most.
Sometimes you get excited. You can't help it.
I just shot a slob, and then a little bit of ground shrinkage, but I think Rachel's the only one that was showing bucks that are bigger when they go up to them.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a rarity, but...
yeah, I'm notorious for that, too.
Yeah.
Like, I shot a decent buck.
That's okay. Well, the Pope and Young buck that I shot a few years ago, that I was like, it's 130. It ended up being 144 and 6/8 was
Nice.
the final score. So that one got bigger. But why don't you tell your story, Tom?
Yeah, I was working on it. But anyway, I was a little upset at first, but I got over it real quick. I knew my hunting season wasn't over.
It got your blood pumping.
Yeah.
It was something to be excited about.
I still had, buck tags in New York and a couple more doe tags. So I didn't hunt the rest of PA gun season because I usually like to save my doe tag for flintlock season. So I decided that I was going to go up to New York for their muzzleloader season, which is their muzzleloader season started the same Saturday is our last day of rifle here in PA. So I took my last final and went up to camp. Got there it would have been a Thursday night. And Friday morning, first hunt on stand, there was about a foot of snow on the ground. It was late season. I figured they'd be hitting food. So I was hunting fields the whole trip I was up there. This particular morning, I was in a hedgerow in between two cornfields. And I was in a big oak tree where you can see 200 yards in every direction. And it's like 12 degrees out, freezing cold. And it gets to be about 9 in the morning. And actually, I stand up to start packing things up. And there's a really nice buck, probably 120-inch 8, standing at the bottom of the cornfield. But I just couldn't get a shot through all the branches on the tree I was in. So I had to let him go. I just watched him feed, and then he disappeared into the corn. And I watched for 45 minutes to an hour and never seen him again. So I
Just be like
down.
Danny DeVito. So anyway, I started blasting.
But I was using a inline muzzleloader, so couldn't really be blasting that fast. But anyway, I went out that evening, and it was snowing like a bugger, windy as all get out. And I know I said I don't do this a lot, but I did climb out of my stand early again because
Sounds like you do it quite often. The only 2 stories you've told.
Forming some of a pattern here.
No, I did it this time because I was up in my stand, and these stands don't get checked every single year. Some of them get missed.
Well, you're talking. The farm's 1,200 acres and a lot of tree stands. So, and it's 3 hours away. So like, we can only do so much. So we try and check as many as you can, but we don't have anything we don't have a map or anything that like all of them are labeled. So some do get forgotten until it's like
15 years later. You're like, I don't want to hunt that.
Mark your spot on Onyx.
You should.
Some people.
So when we're hunting
Should
up
be
there,
sponsored.
I keep a ratchet strap in my bag at all times. And obviously I'm always tied in. I wear a harness for every stand, except sometimes I don't wear them in ladder stands, even though I should. But any lock on, I tie in from the bottom with a lineman rope, but I always carry a ratchet strap. But go ahead, Tom. Back to you.
It was.
Why does everyone interrupt you all the time?
I don't know.
Tom?
I guess they don't like my stories. They just want me to get on with it. I don't know. But windy as can be, and my tree was moving a lot, and I was in a little hangar, and I wasn't feeling it anymore, and I didn't want to burn myself out. I had a long week of hunting left, so I decided I was going to climb down, 20 minutes early, go back to camp, maybe drink a few Jenny beers,
More than a few. I know you.
Yeah, probably more than a few. But anywho, so that's what I did. And I'm walking out. I kick a couple doe out of the field. Next morning, this is when it goes down. So, actually not yet. It did go down this morning, but not like...
Maybe that's why we don't want to hear your stories, Tom, because you don't even know them.
I know them, but it was an exciting hunt. One of my favorite stands. I've killed a lot out of this stand. South Tripod, Lower Lynn. It's a beautiful spot.
Where is that stand at?
Could you
roughly?
give us lat longs, please?
No. Nope. That's all I'm going to give you.
Drop a pin.
So I'll give you the setup. So you're in the stand. You're in a hedgerow. Okay.
You're on the south side of this?
South side of the field. Yeah, in a hedgerow. To your north, about 200 yards, it's that huge gully we were talking about earlier. Okay. To what would be the west, big clover field, and then some super, super thick pines. To the south is all goldenrods, and to the east, there's a little clover food plot, and it's all goldenrod. So it's like whitetail heaven. It's a great spot. So I'm in there, and it's another morning where it was below 10 degrees, and you ever the mornings when you sit on stand and you shift just a little bit and your tree stand screams at you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
So
whole
that-
tree sounds like it's breaking apart.
Yeah, absolutely nothing was quiet this morning. And I was sitting there trying to be as still as possible, but when it's 10 degrees and you're shivering, you got to stand up every once in a while to get some blood circulation, and it's loud. And I'm telling myself, I was like, I got to make it to 11 o'clock. I got to make it to 11 o'clock. And it had just got to 11 o'clock. And I'm like, all right,
Done.
time to pack some stuff up. And getting ready to pack some stuff up, and out comes these more doe. Coming out of the pine trees right out into the clover like I thought they would. They were just a little bit later than I thought, but it worked out.
Good thing you stayed.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. So, pick out the biggest doe, which happened to be the lead doe, and pull up, give her the squeeze. She takes off, and I heard crashing into the pine trees. And I said, okay, she's done. Go down there, no hair, no blood, nothing. I'm like, what the hell? So I decide I'm going to go back to camp, have lunch, come back down on the four-wheeler, see what I can't figure out. Come back down, I find her tracks, follow them into the pine trees, and it was tracks galore in there. I couldn't follow these things to save my life. So I was on what I thought was the right tracks. I tracked them for like 100 yards. Not a speck of blood, nothing. I'm like, I know I hit this deer. I had a perfect shot. I'm going to backtrack, square one. Get back to square one. Follow another set of tracks that I think maybe are this deer's. And I find like one speck of blood and a couple pieces of hair. And I take like 5 more steps over this log, and it just completely opened up. It was easy tracking from there. She didn't go 50 yards from that spot. Got her up to camp. Everything's good. Got her packed up and in the freezer. Had a couple celebratory beers.
Because you were good.
Yeah. I was happy with myself. Actually, I made tenderloins for dinner. So that was a good time. Fast forward 2 days, last day of the hunt, evening, and
Last day, last hour.
yeah,
The typical TV show hunting story.
yeah, it really was though. And I get on stand. I'm in another beautiful spot. I got corn in front of me, clover behind me, bedding to either side. It's a slam dunk spot. Really excited, and I was anxious. I got on stand early. I got on stand probably about 1:30, and about 2:00, and I see these 2 bucks running parallel in the hardwoods with the bottom of the field, and I'm like, oh man, I think they're gonna come up here. Well, they disappeared, and I didn't see them again for another 15 minutes. And when I saw them, I knew that both of them were shooters, and I didn't see them again for like 15 minutes, and then out of the goldenrods, out comes this, which is to this date my best buck, and he comes out and he's facing me, and I got my scope on him. I know he's a shooter, and I'm like, I know he was traveling with another buck. I'm just gonna wait. He's not going anywhere. I'm gonna see what this other buck is, and I'm waiting. It felt like I was waiting for like 10 minutes. It was probably like 20 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah, not a long time. Well, the buck decided that he was going to turn broadside. And I said, oh, well, I'm not waiting for that other one. So pulled the trigger on him, about 100 yards, watched him run down into the woods. He started zigzagging, and I watched him fall. But right after I shot, the other buck came running out and crossed the field. He was actually with a doe. And luckily, I did shoot the bigger of the 2 bucks. So I was pretty happy with that. Got him back to the truck, back to camp, ate tenderloins again. Can't go wrong there.
Eating well.
Yeah, and then the ride home was pretty eventful. So I'm all pumped up. I was up there on a 5-day hunt, got my buck and my doe, and coming home, and I get like a half hour from camp, and I'm thinking in my head, I was like, when I, cleaned out the fire pit, it got a little bit smoky in camp, so I opened up all the windows, and I can't remember if I closed them. So this is really bugging me. So I'm like, I got to find out. So I turn around, go back to camp. So now it's like an hour out of my way, and all the windows were closed. So that was a big waste of time. So now I'm a little bit pissed, and I'm like, wow, I'm an hour behind schedule. So, oh well, here we are. So going back to the interstate again, going through town, and don't I see the blue lights flashing behind me? I'm like, oh, son of a gun.
Breaking the law.
Yeah. So
Easy there, Tom.
yeah. So
He's
I
getting all
get pulled
frustrated
over,
throwing his mic around.
and like I was out of town, so I really didn't know.
Figured you'd start a fight with the cops. Figured it would all just blow over.
No, I didn't really know the speed limits on all the roads. And so the cop pulls me over and comes up to my window and he says, "Do you have any idea why I pulled you over?" I said, "Honestly, no, not really." He said, "You were speeding." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Do you know how fast you were going?" And I said, "No, I was just following the truck that was in front of me." And he said, "Well, I clocked you doing, I think, 52 and a 35 or something."
Was that too many?
Yeah. But it was stupid because, well...
Because you were breaking the law?
No, so he was... There's, like...
It's a bit of a speed trap there.
Yeah,
like coming
there's
into
like
town.
a highway going in the middle of nowhere where it's 55, and then it drops down into a 35. And he must have been sitting, like, at the speed limit sign.
Yeah, there's the speed limit sign's like right in front of the Dollar General where it turns 35, and he was in that parking lot. So it's like you have to be doing 35 before you hit the sign to not get busted there.
Yeah. So anyway, he was actually pretty cool about it. He didn't give me a speeding ticket. He gave me a disobeying a traffic device, which is like a lot lower than a speeding ticket. So I wasn't going to argue with him. So I think everything's fine and dandy. I'm a little bit irritated, but I'm like, oh, we're going to make it home. So get on the interstate. I get to Salamanca, which is about halfway home, and roads are completely bare. Everything's fine. And it's like I hit a wall where it was just like you could not see. Roads had 5 inches of slush on them. And I hit that, get sucked off the side of the interstate. And there wasn't like a mile marker sign for a while.
Probably about 0.2 miles.
Yeah, wherever they put them. And I just happened to get sucked off the road right where there was a mile marker sign, ripped my passenger side mirror off. And so that was fun. A little bit irritated about that. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll just drive back up onto the road. I'm not stuck or anything. Can drive back and forth. Turns out I can't get up the hill. I'm like, crap. Better call a tow truck. So luckily I had AAA. And I'm on the phone with AAA and they put me on hold. And here comes another state trooper. And he comes, knocks on my window, says, "You all right?" So I hang up with AAA. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "Anybody else involved?" And I said, "No, just me." He said, "So I don't need to fill out a report or nothing?" I said, "No, I'm just trying to get back on the road." He said, "Are you trying to get a hold of a tow truck?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, let me do that for you." He's like, "You'll spend forever trying to get through." I'm like, "Thank you." So I told him, I said, "Hey, I have AAA, so can you make sure the tow truck you call has AAA?" "Oh, yeah, no problem." So he goes to his cruiser, comes back like 15 minutes later. "Hey, tow truck's on their way. Said you're going to be, 20 minutes or whatever." I'm like, "Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it." He heads out, and I'm sitting there in my car. Tow truck comes up behind me. I said, "Perfect. Time to go." So he pulls me out and says, "How are you going to pay for this?" I said, "Well, I have AAA." He says, "Oh, we don't take AAA." I'm like, "Oh, shit." He goes, "Well, how about I just take a picture of the front and back of your debit card and we'll call it good." I said, I don't think.
Sounds good. Here you go.
So
why don't you just take my card, mail it back to me?
So I don't think we're gonna do that. So he's like, "Well, we can go to the nearest truck stop and, you can get money out of the ATM." And I was like, "Well, how much is it gonna be?" He said, $220. I'm like, I was literally like 5 feet from the side of the road. Like, you just had to nudge me. He's like, $220 flat rate. Okay. So go to the ATM and
Good thing you didn't have to get towed to a garage.
yeah.
It'll be $30,000.
Yeah. So go to the ATM and however it worked out, I couldn't get $220. I had to get $250. And I go and ask him, I'm like, "I have $250. Do you have change?" He said, "No, I don't have any change." I'm like, "Cool." I'm like, "Well, here's $250." He's like, "Thanks, I appreciate it."
I didn't want to.
Yeah. So I get back on the road. I think everything's fine.
How could you not get exactly $220 out of an ATM?
Most ATM, well, I guess that's a multiple of 20. But what I was about to say was going to be stupid, so never mind.
Oh, this is New York State we're talking about.
Yeah, you're telling me you couldn't get $220 out?
No, there wasn't a $220 option.
You're telling story. Did
Most
you
of the
type
time,
it?
yeah, most of the time there's an other amount option.
I didn't look into that. Probably should have.
Is that guy like standing over your shoulder, just like?
He was probably trying to get his PIN number.
Yeah. No,
Since
it
you
just
wouldn't
like
just give him the back of your credit card.
it just said like, select an amount, and there was like 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 250.
I would have done a 200.
Yeah, I believe it 220 wasn't in that list of. Yeah, anyway, so I was like, whatever. I just want to get home. So get back on the road, and roads are terrible. Snowstorm. I'm pissed. Driving like 20 miles an hour in a 65, trying to get home, and all of a sudden my car starts pulling really hard to the right. I'm like, son of a bitch, probably just got like, some snow in there, like wishful thinking.
Best case scenario.
Yeah, I'm like, we'll just, kick that big chunk of snow out of the fender and we'll be back on track. Well, it turns out my tire was completely flat. And I'm like, oh, man, this sucks. So this is a car my brother Nick gave to me. So I call Nick, and I said, hey, Nick, where's the spare tire in this car? Because I never seen it in the trunk or anything. He said, oh, you got to lift up. There's like a carpet in the trunk. You got to lift it up and open the hatch, and it's underneath that. So I'm like, perfect.
I did give you a warning, though.
Yeah, he did. He said, I don't know if there's a jack in there. And I'm like, well, the spare tire's in there, I'm sure the jack's in there. Turns out it wasn't. So
more wishful thinking on your part.
Yeah, call my dad, and he said, yeah, I'm on my way. Mind you, normally I'm like 20 minutes from home, and with the weather, it took my dad like over an hour to get there. So I'm sitting on the side of the road just waiting. Finally gets there, take the tire off, put the new one on, back on the road. I got home finally at like, I want to say 8 o'clock in the evening, which I left at 10 in the morning, and it's normally a 3-hour drive. So that puts me home at 1 o'clock, if my math is correct.
That's quick math, Tom.
Yeah. So 1 o'clock.
Normally you're like best with shapes, but you're doing numbers today.
I know.
So that's good stuff.
I do it all. So here's some more math. I think that's 7 hours later than anticipated.
You nailed it.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of that story is where there's highs, there's lows. I had a great week,
Yeah, you did. You had a really good week.
Yeah, drank some beer, shot some deer. That was a pretty good rhyme.
Yeah.
Didn't even mean that.
You should start rapping.
We'll just start doing poetry on the
Yeah,
podcast,
Nick, drop
too.
a beat. Gonna get going here.
Let's
But,
not.
Yeah.
We'll skip that.
I don't want to spit fire. I'd probably be insulted, tear him apart.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Right. But yeah, so I had a great week at camp, followed by a shitty ride home.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How good your season was, Tom's was that bad on the ride home.
Yeah, it was rough. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Overall, bad experience. If I could give it a Yelp review, probably be 0 stars.
That's a rough review.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, not a good time. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for my deer season. $2, 2 does. I was pretty happy with it. But,
And your biggest bucks.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, can't complain there.
Well, mine's going to be a little bit shorter than that. So we'll start with archery season. And
you're done already because you didn't see or kill anything. So
I did
move on to
see a
rifle.
lot, actually. So we had this buck up at my granddad's that was pretty remarkable. It was mainframe 8. There was a little bit of junk, but like I don't even.
Nobody even knew that until it was killed, right?
My uncle Kevin had some really good pictures. So I mean, we knew it was a good 8 and you could see in the pictures like some little bit of junk, but nothing like, probably not even scoreable points. Just extremely remarkable, really heavy, super tall, super wide. Like it had everything that you could ever ask for. And that was the first buck that I've ever decided I'm not going to kill anything unless that walks in front of me. I've never played that game before. Usually I'm like, first buck that walks in front of me, I'm killing it. And it just happens to be better than the last one I got. I get pretty lucky. But this one was like, I'm not going to kill anything unless you walk in front of me. So I hunted hard all archery season after that buck, chasing him around. Never got a sighting of him. Had some pictures like just after dark. Like he was smart. He was waiting in bed until after dark. My grandpa was, like within 15 minutes of killing him. Like he climbed down 15 minutes later, the same camera that my grandpa walked by, that buck walked by. Like he was smart. So I spent an entire archery season chasing him around, saw some decent bucks, but nothing that got me excited because that was what was on my mind. And then he ended up getting killed like the first Tuesday or something in rifle season.
I don't remember. I think it was the second week, actually.
Oh, was it? Either way, it got killed.
But it was killed.
Really, really good buck. Ended up, I think, what was it? Gross was what
I scored it. I think it was 164. It was an 8-point. And it was I think it was 164 or 166 and 3/8.
Have I seen a picture of this? I'm gonna have to see a picture.
I'll keep talking. Yeah. Have Frank or somebody pull up a picture. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And the guy that killed it's a really good dude. So like I was super happy for him. And he had even admitted he's like, yeah, like he had found it sheds the year before.
He showed me a picture when he found the shed. He was plowing. He was getting ready to plant. So he's plowing the dirt, and his plows were like right in front of the shed.
He like almost destroyed it.
Yeah, and
wait. So would Rich from the bow shop know about? Like, is this the same story Rich just told me?
I don't know. What story do you?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I know. He checked it.
Well, he was telling me about someone like plowing and finding a shed, and then eventually shooting the buck. So I don't know.
It could very well be the same story. But so yeah, he was like plowing, and he showed me the picture. His plow was like a foot from hitting this shed and putting it underneath the dirt, and it would have been gone. But he picked it up, and he put the shed right next to when he actually did kill the deer. He put the shed next to it, and it was literally identical.
Did you show her the picture of him holding it?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so they ended up, it was like just over 6 inches around the bases. I mean, just like the heaviest deer I've ever seen. And after
23 and a half on the inside, it was.
Oh wow!
Like it had everything.
Wow.
It was like I said, that was the first buck I'd ever chased. Like solely put everything into that one. I didn't
that
even.
Is insane. Mine was 22 inside, and that I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I didn't even typically like I'll jump from property to property. I didn't really leave that farm. I was set on I wanted to find that deer. But anyway, so. That one was taken out of my life, and that was okay, though, because like I said, the guy was a good dude. I was really happy for him. So that was all of archery for PA. And then I spent the last week in November, or the last week of the season in New York, up there bow hunting. And last year I had seen about a chest high rub. I mean, on a tree that was probably almost 8 inches in diameter, just a huge rub, chest high. Like I knew it was a mature buck, but I found that like after the season. So like that, I never had any encounters with a buck that I felt could leave that there. And I hadn't really hunted that side of the farm much. So it was just kind of saw it, was aware of it, and then kind of just forgot about it, didn't talk about it. And then this year I went back up there, hunted that area, and I saw a really tall 8 or a 10. I couldn't tell just because of where I was at. It was like through some thick brush, but I could see that it was a mature buck. And I watched him leave another rub on a similar tree, like on that same line, about probably 60 yards from me. And that was the first like encounter in the woods I had with him. And I was like super stoked, like, okay, like I really want to kill this deer. So I moved in on him, pulled my stand, got closer. And at this point, like the rut was really starting to kick in. And I knew I was like kind of losing time where it was like, I can't pattern this deer much longer. Like he's going to just go wild here pretty soon. But I backed out for like a day or two just because like there were some other guys hunting and the wind wasn't right. So I just didn't want to get in there. I got back in there a couple days later and heard some grunting coming from where I had last seen him. And then all of a sudden, like bunch of crashing, loud sticks snapping, just going nuts. And I'd watched doe came running right by, probably like 30, 35 yards from me, which is well inside my bow range. Like I'm comfortable shooting up to 50 yards on a whitetail. In the field, like looking away, but like in the woods, I don't really shoot much past like 40. Like I really won't. But anyway, so the doe comes running through like 35. I'm like, okay, something's chasing that deer. Grab my bow, I'm ready, and that buck that I had seen, which now I can confirm that it was a 10 because I got a really good look at him, comes barreling through at 35 yards, and as fast as I saw him, he was gone again. Like, just I couldn't get him to stop. He was on that doe, jumped right to the bottom of the gully, back up the other side, like just gone. There was nothing I could do. I was like, kind of heartbroken because I was so close. And now I know that like he's just chasing and there's no way I can pattern him. I stayed in there a little bit, a couple more days, and I never saw him again. But like I said, I didn't get anything this year hunting. I was chasing a couple different bucks, but I felt like this was the first year I really felt like I learned a lot of stuff hunting, because like before, the last 4 years I've been in college and I didn't have a ton of time to hunt. So if I saw like a legal buck, I was probably just going to shoot it. And I just was getting lucky to where like each year it was just getting bigger. Like freshman year of college, I'd killed like a 14-inch white 8, and then it was like 17-inch white 8, and then I killed a big 7 that if the one side was super weak, had it been both sides, that would have been my first Pope and Young, but the one side was just really weak. It just had like a 2 or 3 inch tine on the one. Like it was like the same size main beam almost. It was like 22 inches or something like that on the main beam, but it just had no points. So this year I felt like I learned a lot, but didn't kill anything, but I still felt like it was a success. But
there's definitely a lot to learn just watching deer, not necessarily shooting at deer, killing deer. If you're just sitting there in the woods watching them and learning their patterns and seeing how they react when you're not trying to kill them, you learn a lot from those little interactions with them.
Yeah, for sure. And
even like right now, we've got right behind the house, like we've got a corn pile and a camera out off season just to see like what made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like an hour before dark, they'll all start coming out, and I'll just sit in the back, like watching out the back window of the house, like seeing how they behave. Like anytime you're out there, observe, like you can learn every day. Like that's what I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need a weapon in your hand.
Yeah, exactly. There's one story I always tell, and I won't tell the whole thing right now, but it was after I killed my Pope and Young deer, and I just was out filming deer one day just because I filled my tag and I was saving my doe tag, and I was like, I'm just going to go sit out in the field and see what happens. And I learned more that day than I had in the previous several seasons just sitting there watching deer. I didn't have a gun in my hand or a bow in my hand, but I was just looking at them and learning and seeing how they reacted to different things that I did. And I learned so much just from observing.
Yep.
Yeah, when you take that whole aspect of like trying to kill it out of the picture, you probably can calm yourself down quite a bit when you're not worried about making a good shot. Like you can just observe. I'm sure you could obviously learn a lot, like you said. But that was the wrap up of my season. Like you said, didn't get anything, but learned a lot. White, why don't we hear how your day or how your season went?
Man, yeah.
But
my day was good.
How you did. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was a good day.
That's what they're really here for. How was Frank's day?
Probably not as good as my day. How about that shed?
Yeah, that was a good shed.
We'll bring the shed in after Frank talks, because it's a very good shed.
Let me tell my story.
Okay,
you talked
fine,
enough, Rachel.
Fine. Everyone just always gets sick of my stories.
So anyway, my day was good. Thanks for asking. And my season was pretty good. I had a really good time this season. Archery season, I had one buck in mind that I talked about earlier in the podcast that I saw the one day out in the bean field that I didn't get a shot at because I made a poor decision to hunt the wrong stand. And throughout the season, I saw 5 or 6 different nice bucks that I was like, yeah, those are good for next year. They're real close to shooters, but I'm not gonna take them with my bow. And the one that I actually ended up killing, I passed twice with my bow. And so
it's that one sitting right next to you, Rachel, actually.
Yeah, that one right there. The one that won the rifle pool because it was clearly bigger than the one you shot.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to ask like how much the pool was worth because I was just like, I don't want to know because I don't want that to change my mind. Just keep it. So don't tell me.
I won't tell. So anyway, my archery season was pretty much just all observation, looking at bucks, seeing deer, and then when I saw the one that I wanted to kill, I wrote off pretty much everything else. And so my archery season was eventful, but I didn't harvest anything. And then I bought a pistol. I bought a Smith & Wesson 460 for Alaska, and I was like, I want to hunt with this thing. And so it's a little dual purpose. And so I basically planned my rifle season to basically be like my archery season because I'm decent with a pistol, but I'm not going to be shooting 150 yards with it just because it's ballistically capable, but I am not capable. So I just planned my rifle season to be just like my archery season. And I actually sat in the stand that I wanted to hunt the night that I saw the buck that I wanted to kill. And it was the first day of rifle season in PA. I didn't get to hunt the morning because I was working. And sit in this stand. It's right on like a hedgerow between two fields. And my dad's business partner, Dave Buck, was actually hunting in a field right next to me, and he saw these two bucks come out into the field, and he was about to shoot one of them. And I looked up into the field and saw these two, and I was like, oh my God, this one is an absolute monster. And like they're coming right down to me. I was like, no way, this is going to be my first pistol kill, like this absolute monster deer. So I'm shaking like crazy, getting all excited, and they're working their way down, and they get 40 yards from me, and I can like see this deer well, and it's like a 20-inch wide 6-point, but it's illegal. It's got a brow and 2 up. I was like, no, like it was so big. Like if it had 10 points, it would have been a 150-inch deer.
Yeah.
Like it was huge. So I was like, that sucks. And then so I looked to the one behind it, and I was like, oh, I've seen that buck before. It's a nice buck. And I was like, I've never killed anything with the pistol. This is my first hunt with the pistol. He's plenty big enough. So, I'm set up on him. I pull the hammer back, and the click of the hammer, he jerks his head up and looks right at me. And I was like, you're done. Squeezed off on him and floored him right there. He was quartering to me, and it went in right in front of his shoulder, and it bulged out his hide right behind, like right at the back of his rib cage. I double lunged him, turned his insides to jelly. He was done. So he was a pretty nice buck. He was about a 16-inch wide 8-point. Okay mass, decent tine length. He was a nice buck. Nothing special. Definitely not my biggest, but I was thrilled with it being my first pistol kill. And so yeah, that was my PA season. And I guess I kind of went out of order here because New York came first.
Sometimes it's best to go to
start
the
at the end and refer back to the beginning. But the New York season, we had a lot of fun. A lot more fun than hunting.
Hunt. Yeah.
So we have a cabin up in New York that we built 2 years ago, I think. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. So we were up there, and
this is our second winter with it.
Yeah, so 2 years. And I usually spend the first day of New York rifle there, and Nick and Tom go to their other camp. And so I'm up there, and Nick decided to come with me, and our buddy Jared decided to come too.
Over Let Fly.
Let Fly. Yeah, he's been on the podcast. He was our squirrel expert.
Squirrel spurt.
Squirrel spurt. So he was up at the cabin with us, and the night before the first day, we had a little fun. And
that was the first time we all got the boys together for opening day of gun at the cabin. So there was a little bit of celebrating.
Yeah. So we got a little tuned in that night, and got out a little bit late the next morning for the first day, and I was like hoofing it to my stand.
Got out late on first day.
Better believe it.
It was real late.
Well, wait. So New York, it's sunrise, not 30 minutes before.
Yeah,
right? So you were still late.
Big time. I wouldn't say big time, but
we were probably
time.
We got up probably right at like legal shooting hour, and
we got up when you wanted to be in.
Basically, yeah.
And so I was like walking down the road, and I'm like hoofing it, getting there as fast as I can.
It was rough.
And yeah.
Then we didn't even get to bed until like 3. That was the problem. Like it was bad. Poor planning on our part.
No excuses.
You're right. It's not a good excuse, but
I can hang with the best of them till 3 a.m. and get out bright-eyed, bushy-tailed,
You can.
sit on a stand all day long.
Yes, you
I don't
can.
want to hear it.
I said you can.
Yeah.
Growing up, well, until this year, really, my grandpa would always have a big poker party the night before opening day of rifle, so Sunday, and everyone gets pretty drunk, and then goes hunting the next morning. And like, you always get up and you go because it's first day. What do you, first day?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm so sad about the Saturday opener because of that, because it's like such a lost tradition. But
yeah.
Anyway, I'm disappointed in you.
I'm sorry.
Big yikes.
Sorry to let you down, but so we get out there and Jared gets set up because he was just in ladder stand.
Well, Jared had never been to the property before, so I was taking him to my prime location. I got one stand, like, for that's property, like, it's surrounded by Amish, so you're really not hunting like trophy bucks there.
Yeah.
It's a meat spot. You're filling your freezer there. So like, I got one spot that I claimed.
You're guaranteed a 4-point.
Yeah, there's deer running by there a lot.
Oh, New York bucks are great.
Yeah. So I put Jared in that stand, and then I just hiked in with my climber and was just going to go pick a spot. There's a swamp on the backside that deer typically travel through opening day because people are shooting everywhere. And I was about halfway up my tree when shots started ringing out.
And again, not my finest hour.
Shots, mind you, with
multiple.
an S.
Yes, there was more than one. So I'm hoofing it down the road, getting to my stand. I climb up, take my pack off, and I'm like looking around. I'm still breathing heavy. I was like, wow, this is not a good start to the morning. And I'm looking around, assessing my situation, where are my shots going to come from. And I see some does come jumping up out of the swamp, and there's a big field, like there's some hardwood then field, and they're running through the hardwood, and one of them went all the way through, and two of them turned back and came right to me. And following behind them was a bigger deer. I couldn't really see it at this point, but I could tell its body was bigger. So I was like, okay, I think that's my guy. And then I see some antlers on top of it. I was like, oh man, we're really getting it now. So I, get settled into my scope, and I'm looking, and he stops in some red brush. So I could kind of see him, and I could see that he had a decent rack on his head. So I was like, okay, he's definitely getting the smack down.
Mind you, like, the biggest buck that's been killed there is like
a 12-inch 8-point. Like, it was.
Yeah, there really hasn't been. Like, you're fighting Amish that hunt year round.
Oh yeah.
It's very difficult. So
yeah,
and there's no
battling
antler
that,
restriction up there, which definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and they play Brownets down year round.
Oh yeah. So
That was another good rhyme.
Yeah.
The other thing in New York I heard, is this true? Like, you can sign over your tags.
Yes.
Just a doe tag.
Just doe tags.
Oh, doe tags. Okay.
Yeah, so like, you basically like, it obviously has to be done before the deer is killed. Like, you can't like be like, hey, I shot a deer, can I have your tag? But basically, like, when we're done, like, opening day of gun up in like our farther camp, because like doe tags, just like here, they're broken up into like units. So like my doe tag for that area, I'll sign over after I'm gone, so then like other guys can use it while we're up there.
All right.
But yeah, buck tags you can't transfer, but you do get one for rifle and one for archery.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm on stand, I see this buck coming, and I decide I want to shoot him, and I'm just waiting for him to step out. I got my crosshairs just waiting, and it seemed like forever, but he finally stepped out, and
couldn't have been that long because I wasn't even in my tree yet.
Yeah, exactly. It was not long at all. And it was the same situation with you and your 6'5". I was rock solid on that, right behind the front shoulder, squeezed off. Deer just stood there. And I've seen them stand there after they get hit, it just shocks them and they just lock up and stand there.
Did he like hunch up at all?
No.
He just
No,
stood
he
there.
didn't. So it was a little...
Oh, this gets good.
Yeah. So I was like, well, he's still standing there. I'm going to rack another one. So I rack another one, and he literally didn't move at all. So same thing. Rock solid, squeeze off.
Now, this stand, it has a shooting rail,
Oh,
correct?
yeah, it's a double stand. It's a double ladder. It's solid as can be. So I rack another one in. Shoot. Nothing.
Can you believe we let this guy hunt up at the farm? Unreal.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So there I was, racking a third shell. Squeeze off again. Standing there. Rack another shell. This is number 4 here. I touch off, and he finally takes off running. And he acted hit that time. So I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. And he stops at that point, he's about 40 yards. And then he stops again at about 150. And I touch off again, and he drops right down. I was like, I don't know what's happening right now. And I can see him like kicking. I was like, I need to just get over there and solve this issue. So I run over to him, finish him off. And apparently my scope had gotten knocked way off.
That's what they all say.
That's what we were saying too.
Buck fever, more like it.
No, I shot it on paper afterwards, and it
yeah.
was about 8 inches to the right. So
Picture it didn't happen.
apparently it didn't happen.
Well, you heard it here, folks.
So yeah, the deer ended up dead. It was about 10 minutes after I got in the stand, everything was done. Nick wasn't even in his stand yet.
And I climbed right back down because, like...
Well, I texted him, and I was like, hey, I got a buck down. And he was like, oh, yeah? I was like, yeah, it's the biggest buck we've killed up here. And I was like, I know it sounds like a whole herd died over here, but it was just one deer. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm going to climb down. I was like, well, I don't want to ruin your morning hunt. Like, finish out
I
your
ruined
hunt.
my morning hunt by getting in here late.
Yeah. So I was like, just finish your hunt. And he's like, nope, you shot the biggest buck ever killed up here. I'm coming over. So he came over. Jared came over. We drug it out. And we were back at the cabin and drinking whiskey by, 8:15?
Yeah, it was pretty rough. We didn't do a whole lot of hunting opening day.
Yeah, it was a lot more fun than hunting.
I don't know. I take my archery season extremely seriously. And then rifle to me is more like tradition.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
It's the tradition. Like, I look forward to the night before opening day gun season more than I do actually sitting in the woods with my gun.
That's why I hunted with the pistol this year, because, I like rifle hunting, but I wanted to just change it up and do something different for rifle season.
Yeah.
So I shot the pistol this year. And, we can't up in New York because it's such a pain to get a pistol up there.
It's basically illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you're allowed a pistol as a non-resident is if you're going to a shoot, like an actual sanctioned shoot.
Yeah.
Which I think is ridiculous. If I own property in New York, I can't carry there, which seems absolutely ridiculous to me. I can't even hunt with it. Like, you're trapping. Like, when I'm in Pennsylvania trapping and stuff, we always carry a pistol with us, and you can't do that either. Like, it's because of New York City, and that governs the entire state.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically how I feel about rifle season. I'm a diehard archery hunter. Like, I hunt as hard as I can during archery, and then rifle, I'm like, all right, it's fun time now. Like, let's just mess around, and that's why I shot the pistol this year, so just to change it up a little bit.
Well, I feel the same way. Even this year, taking a buck tag into rifle, not killing anything in archery.
Yeah, big change of pace.
I still took rifle. I don't know, it's just more as fun, spending, I love archery.
Yeah, obviously archery's still fun.
I love archery. But... I love hunting by myself, being alone in nature, observing. But I also love, the family and friend atmosphere of rifle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, I remember one day this year sitting in the stand with my dad in rifle, and there was just this gorgeous sunset, and I'm taking pictures of it, and he's like, hey, stop taking pictures of the sunset. You're supposed to look for deer. You got a buck tag. And I'm like, I know, but it's so pretty, And 5 minutes later, he goes, hey, look at the sunset. It's so pretty. And I'm like,
Dad, look for deer.
Dad, look for deer. But yeah, it's just fun to be out there with family and stuff. And I especially with my dad, any memory in the woods is just so special. I don't know if you guys know, he was in a real bad tree stand accident.
I was actually going to bring that up earlier when you were talking about tree stand safety. I couldn't remember if it was your uncle or your dad that fell.
Yeah, it was my dad.
That.
2010. I lived in Connecticut. He was archery hunting actually he wasn't even hunting. He was moving a stand. So luckily, one of his buddies was with him, moving a stand, trimming it out, whatever. The cables had rusted out. And I hang on. And so the cable snapped. Basically, the platform fell out from underneath of him. He was in, steel-toed boots, So when he fell, his, hips and back absorbed all the impact. And so he broke his neck, back, in, 5 places. And I was in Connecticut when I found out. And they didn't know at the time, how bad it was. It took them a while to get to him and get him airlifted to the hospital. Luckily, his buddy was there, and otherwise, I don't know. He probably would have laid there and died. I don't know.
Yeah.
So my mom actually had beat him to the hospital, I think. And so my girlfriends that I lived with in Connecticut threw me in the car, drove me 8 hours through the night. I got there right before he was going to go into surgery, saw him like in the neck brace and stuff like that, and just felt like throwing up, like seeing your dad, you know, like your dad like that. And you know, I know he was like mad at it. He's like, oh, so stupid, so stupid. He's mad at himself for it. And he went through a couple surgeries and stuff. And he's doing really well now. He's so lucky to still be hunting.
Yeah, for sure.
And be in good shape and everything. You know, he deals with a lot of pain, and he probably will need more surgery in the future, but he's very fortunate to not be like in a wheelchair or paralyzed
just the fact
or
that he's
dead.
still able to go hunting with you is huge.
So like every memory since, like I just cherish, like we year round, like we shed hunt, we scout, we plant food plots, we put out minerals, we check cameras, like I'm closer with my dad, I think, than like anyone else, any other like normal 30-year-old, 7-year-old like woman. Like I'm so close to my dad because of all of that, and that's what I love so much about hunting, is like having that family aspect to it. So like I cherish every memory with hunting with him, whether we get a deer or not, you know. It's just
some of our best memories, there isn't, you know, a kill attached to the end of the story. It's just the experience. You know, we went hunting Maryland with our buddies and stuff, and
we went turkey hunting in Maryland last year, and we didn't kill a thing, but we had a blast the whole time.
Yeah,
for sure. But you know, that was all of our recaps, and I know Rachel's was definitely more eventful than the rest of us. So
I mean,
maybe
if you
I didn't even actually like finish my season. I just talked about one deer. I got a doe too, but like we like to do a lot of doe hunting just because, which I think I heard you guys talk about earlier. You don't normally like kill doe, but we like, and I think next year I'll probably apply for some DMAP tags because we have way too many does on our property.
See,
I had 2 doe tags this year, but the problem I have, like, not that I am against killing does, but like I'm looking
exactly
at a doe.
where
I know where you're going with this.
I'm looking at a doe and I'm like, if I shoot you, I'm gonna see a buck jump up 30 yards behind you and go, God damn it! Like if I would have just waited, I'd have had the buck. So a couple of years ago, I think it was last year, not this past season, but the year before, so 2 seasons ago, I was watching a buck chasing a doe, and it was a decent buck. You know, it was like a 17-inch 7-point. And I was like, that's not the one I want to kill. So I was like, well, I guess the doe gets the hammer down tonight. So I laid the doe down. So, you know, I'm definitely not against killing does. I have to justify it first before, you know, I'm like, as long as I'm sure there's not a buck I want to kill standing right there, I'm going to shoot a doe.
So it's like it's always my plan, like, let's kill does early in the season, right? Yep. Like, you can pretty much pattern them early in the season, get it done with. But same thing. It's like maybe there's a buck trailing, you know, and I never do. So I generally like to let some lead fly in rifle season on does. But I did get one in late archery. So so this year, like even in rifle season, I didn't really take buck hunting that seriously because like I'm more about spending time with family and stuff. And luckily I ended up getting my buck and rifle, but I really wasn't worried about taking a buck tag even into late archery because I had standing beans. Yeah. And I had easy access to evening hunt. Like I could sneak out with deer in the field into my stand. And so I really wasn't worried about taking a buck tag even into late archery, but luckily it didn't go that long. So late archery, I did kill a doe. I kind of gave up on my spot in Ohio. I need to find a new spot for Ohio. But
yeah, I'm the same way. Like usually I save my doe tags for muzzle loading, like Tom said earlier. Like I like to save it because that's another time. Like I don't really care about killing the deer. It's just having fun walking around the woods with Nick and Tom, you know, our buddies. You know, we just have a great time pushing deer. It's flintlock season or late archery, whatever you're hunting with. You know, we're just having fun. You know, it's not the fact that you're killing a deer. You're just in the woods having fun.
Yep.
So, like I said, obviously you had a really good season. And, you know, with every guest we get on the podcast, we like to do what we call a write it in pen. And it's basically just something that, I don't know, maybe you put towards your success in the woods or even in life, just like a little tip that you go by that keeps you either motivated or maybe you know, kind of give credit to some of your success for. if you had to give like one write it in pen segment for us tonight, what would you have to say?
Yeah, so going into it, when I first thought about it, my write it in pen was just going to be safety. But we've already talked about that a lot. Like, wear your harness.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. No deer's worth it. But I think since we've already talked about that a lot, I would say just how we as hunters, like, present ourselves in the public and on social media, I think is really important. You know, with such a tough political climate, like we talked about what was happening in New York, a lot going on in California, stuff trying to happen in Virginia, like it is very real that some of these like rights could be taken away from us. So like how we present ourselves on social media is really important, both to other hunters, like not arguing with each other over like,
That's
oh,
one of my
don't use
biggest
crossbows
pet
or
peeves.
like
yeah.
you know
I'm
what?
okay with
Crossbow
the
thing,
the joking and stuff, like with your buddies and stuff. But I
Yeah.
hate somebody like keyboard warriors, if you will, like
Mm-hmm.
calling somebody out that they don't even know, and it's like we're on the same team here, man. Like,
Well, there's some people that like literally just want to put me in their freezer. They don't care what they shoot. So who cares how small
Yeah,
their
if
buck
that's
is?
what
like,
you want to do, yeah.
stop like
As
being
long as
so
it's a
mean
legal
to each
kill,
other.
just do it.
But also like when we're posting pictures or whatever of deer, like trying to clean it up or just present it like, look, we're doing this to provide food for our family, or we're doing this because hunting is conservation. Like explaining what conservation is, stuff like that, so that, you know, maybe, I know it's like a long shot, but maybe the other side can like understand why we're doing what we're doing, and it's not so against us. So
at least honor it.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, just
Like
being-
I don't agree with it, but like I
yeah,
understand why you're doing it. Like I wouldn't. They don't want to partake in it, and that's fine. But like, allow us to do what we want and feel is right.
Absolutely. Like just the other day, I was on a business trip and talking to someone who was a vegetarian, and I told her that I was a hunter. And like that's a risky move, but I was like, here's why. Like
Yeah,
my
I'm sure
freezer,
her knee-jerk reaction was like, oh my god, what are you doing?
yeah, but I was like, look, my freezer is full of very lean organic meat and fish and vegetables I grew myself, and my fridge is full of eggs from like I like to be very like self-sufficient. And she's like, you know what, I really respect that. I'm against like the farm raised aspect or all of the other stuff that people like, you know, like antibiotics or whatever that are in some of the store-bought foods, and she really respected it. So it's like, I think a little bit of education can go a long way with the right audience. I mean, there are some people that aren't going to listen, but still, like, just trying to present ourselves in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Like you said, just getting people to understand, even if they don't agree with it,
Yep.
getting them to understand your side and say, you know what, I get
Yeah,
why
respect
you
it.
think that way, but I don't think that way.
Yeah.
Just getting not on the exact same page, but in the ballpark.
Yeah.
For sure, that was a good write it in pen.
Thank you.
It's extremely important. I mean, like even this year, especially, we started like becoming more active with like our social media accounts, and like when we post pictures of like we like to post pictures of other people's deer as well, like with permission, obviously. But like we make sure it's got to be a cleaned up picture. Like I don't. Everybody that hunts understands and knows the whole process that goes with the hunting, but that's not the people you're worried about seeing it. It's the people that don't hunt that you have to like. The pictures need to be nice for, and it goes down to respect for the animal too. Like we always like I don't like to do any blood. You know, tuck the tongue back away. Like there's so many little things you can do to make a picture, you know, jump several levels in quality. That I think everybody that's out there hunting and stuff should definitely like take seriously, and you know, do more than just like a quick cell phone picture while it's laying in the ground. Like prop it up, do it justice.
Yeah. Well, even like I try to explain, maybe like in my captions or whatever, like that, you know, my like actually killing a deer, taking a life, like I take that really seriously. I don't, a lot of times, like I'm not an emotional person a lot of times, but like when it comes to hunting, like I bawled my eyes out when I killed the deer this year, you know, because I felt bad that he suffered for so long, and I worked so hard to try to make a good shot, and I don't take bad shots. Like we treat the meat with like the utmost respect to make sure it's taken care of, and we like every night, like tonight we made steak salad, and you know, we talked about the deer that it was from, and
Yeah, and
like,
every time you eat a meal from that deer,
yeah,
you
and
have that memory of it and the
it's
respect
like
for it.
being in touch with the outdoors. And it's not, and even people that are like, oh, you're just a trophy hunter. No, like I like killing mature bucks because I want to manage the population in a certain way. You know, it's not about the antlers. It's really not. It's a challenge. It's more of a challenge, certainly, to kill a bigger buck, I think.
Yeah.
To outsmart them in their own habitat and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
that's not what it's about. So just kind of like explaining, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. Like, because I think growing up a lot of times I used to admittedly be like, hell yeah, if it's brown, it's down, you know? And like now it's like, okay, we really have to watch how we present ourselves.
Yeah,
because
you definitely, especially like nowadays, like you said, with the social media era, everything you do, people will see.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like tradition. Tom, when he shot his doe up in Clymer this year, tell him about your tradition that you always do, Tom, with your tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
That comes from Native Americans.
Yeah, so I learned it from my dad. He went out on a turkey hunt. He hunted like 5 states in 5 days out west. But he had a guide who was a Native American BAM.
Well, they were hunting with him because they were on an Indian reservation out of South Dakota.
Yeah. And when, my dad would harvest a bird, his guide would pull out his pouch of tobacco and sprinkle a little bit, on the carcass. Is just like a thank you. It's giving thanks to the animal for it sacrificing its life for you to have food. And I always have, tobacco in my hunting book bag. And I don't know why, but that night I shot my doe, I didn't have it with me. And like it was just weighing on my mind, and we went back up 3 or 4 days later.
And it's a 50-minute drive to get back up to where he shot that deer.
Yeah, just so like I could sprinkle tobacco and just put closure to the whole thing, and just pay my respects and say thank you. It's just something that I always do.
That's really special. Again, this year, I've never had to let an animal go overnight before, like waiting to track it. And I didn't sleep the whole night. I wanted to throw up. I just felt so awful. And that morning, getting ready, I said a prayer, and I'm not like an overly religious person. Like, I believe in God. I don't go to church all the time because I feel like I am more in touch with God, like in the woods, than I am at church.
There's a lot of people that I know that resonates with.
But I said a prayer that morning, and I was like, please either let him live through that shot, or like let me find him, let it be a quick death. And so I was really sad that it I don't think it was as quick of a death as I had hoped, but I was so happy when my dad started like hooting and hollering that he found him. It was same thing. Like, he was down in this ravine, like very steep ravine, and I could not get to him. And I just sat on the ground in the snow and just like cried. And my dad's like, "Get over here, he's huge." And I'm like, "I can't." But like, it is very emotional and it is very special, and I feel like we need to make sure that like people understand that a little bit better, because it's like a very real possibility that some of these rights could be taken from us.
Yeah, and most people like to convey the trophy, and the pictures they take are all about look how big my buck is, but you got to appreciate the whole process. And like you were saying, you get emotionally attached to that process, and you got to respect everything about it. It's not just that trophy. And that's what most people see, like, oh, you're just killing that animal. It's like, no, I truly respect that animal in the utmost degree. Like, I, have a physical connection with that thing. Like, it's my absolute favorite part of hunting, and like, no lie, is processing my own deer. I love sitting there. I'll have a beer. I will spend hours like being meticulous. Like, I clean that meat so good, and it's just like a beautiful piece of meat, and I'm so proud of that. Yeah, we process all of our own deer too.
Yeah.
It's
so it's very rewarding to like me, like the processing it after the fact, it kind of like completes the cycle where like you do the preparation, you hunt it, you kill it, and then you process it yourself. Like it kind of it, like I said, it brings it full circle. It's there. You
And
don't
like
get
you said with eating your steak salad tonight, you know, you're talking about the deer that came from. You know, it brings it all back around, and you can tell that story every time you eat it.
Yeah. Even, I mean, I understand some people can't like do it themselves or whatever, but I encourage everybody to at least try it once. Like, try and get access to process a deer, or at least be there to process it once. Just in, like, we've always offered, like, obviously we don't do like professional processing or anything, but like our buddies and stuff, like if anyone's interested in learning, like bring your deer over to the house. We're not going to charge you anything. We're going to walk you through it the entire time. Like, grab a knife, help us. We'll show you exactly how to do it, because I think it's important as a hunter to understand that whole part of the process, really.
Oh yeah, like, and I've always, like, I want to learn every step of the way, and like I want to be like self-sufficient in that way, and it's so cool. And I'm very, like, I'm meticulous about it. Like, take your time, clean it up good. It makes a difference in how the meat tastes. We actually built a walk-in cooler. And it doesn't really cost that much. So if you're interested in that, let me know, because I can tell you how to do it. It actually doesn't cost that much at all. And we age our meat for like 2 to 3 weeks. We we skin it and hang it before we quarter it or anything. We'll take the inner loins out, but we'll hang it and age it for 2 to 3 weeks before we process it. And you lose a little meat that way, because it does, like, the outside does dry out. So you got to kind of trim off some of the stuff that, like, air touches, basically. But you lose a little bit of meat that way, but God, it tastes so much better. Like, it's worth it.
I'd love to be able to process them. We let them hang as much as you can, like when, like on a cold winter.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've never been able to hang them 2 to 3 weeks. I'm sure that would make a crazy
difference.
I
think our cooler is like 8x8. So if you ever need to hang a deer for like our early archery or something, like, we got room.
Sounds good. I'm sure we'll take you
careful
up on
putting that offer out there, because you're probably going to get a call now.
Well, if you don't pick your deer up within 2 weeks, it's ours.
It becomes Rachel's.
Tenderloin. If you don't take the tenderloins out, those usually dry up and go missing.
Yeah. Well, this was fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you for coming on. Yeah. We really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping you can talk Andy into coming on.
I know.
Hopefully he's not too mad at us.
Honestly, okay. Like, I'm going to give him a lot of credit, and so, like, maybe he'll come back, because he has, like, I've learned so much from him. You know, he worked at a bow shop basically his whole life.
Yeah,
and
he's taught me a lot too, like with muskie fishing and stuff. Like, he's definitely a hardcore outdoorsman. Like, he knows his stuff. He works hard. So,
and he's very good. Like, he'll tell you, like, I probably spend more time in the woods than he does, just because my job allows it. But he is such a good hunter.
Absolutely.
I continue, like, him and my dad, I'm always learning from. So hopefully he'll come on.
I think we'll be able to convince him.
Yeah.
But no, we'll get him on there. I'm pretty confident we'll get him on there. But just to wrap it up here, I know Frank talked about it at the beginning, but we did just start releasing videos. Right now they're more fishing related. Luke's been hammering steelhead in local tributaries in the area, and he just put together his first video and posted that. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Maybe, I don't know, he's out there a lot. Maybe you guys will run into him, but overall, make sure you guys are just getting outside.